Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast, a very special edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. You know, a passing of a torch, some would say. You know, I don't think it's all sad times, anything like that. I think you're just getting more quality MMA content in your life. Cody and I have moved on. We've been telling you guys for a month, but like every single week we get comments going, where's the show? What's going on with this and that? But Cody and I have moved on to the Bookie Beatdown YouTube channel. We started our own little thing, but there's no drama, anything like that with Pat. We love Pat. I've been working with Pat for 7 years, and it's been a great experience. Long and short of it is my family lives far away. I want to be closer to them, and the situation kind of played out for me and Cody to go out on my own. But people are probably here to be like, who are the new hosts of the Dogger Pass podcast? Well, Cody is here to break down this card, UFC 315. And we've got Mike and Dan Tom stepping up and in to fill these shoes and bring more content to Mayo Media Network on a week-to-week basis. They're just filling in the slot. As you guys have become accustomed to here on Mayo Media Network. So, Dan, why don't you introduce yourself to the people here?
What's up, everybody? First and foremost, I guess I'm a fan of the Dogger Pass podcast, so hopefully at least that part is in some good hands. But yes, I've been around the space. I write for MMA Junkie. If you've seen me before, over at Home of Fight, done some podcasting and whatnot. Been in this space, and hopefully you'll get to know me more so as time goes on. So I don't want to wax too much here, but in said time, I've been able to obviously meet people, like Paul and Cody, as well as my co-host here, Mike, who you guys are about to meet. And it's kind of a small world and a small community, and we're kind of joking how we're older guys and getting on in age, but hopefully that brings some maturity and experience and some more insight. And I think more is the key word to focus on here. You guys are just getting more. You're getting more content. You guys still love Paul and Cody. You guys are still getting them. In fact, you're getting more of them with all they're doing on there. I'll let them speak for themselves, but I'm happy to be here, and I'm going to be really happy to be joining you guys and giving you guys what I got to add to your, insight analysis and, hopefully help you make some, good picks and plays for the weekend.
And then you got Mike, co-founder and owner of the Madlab MMA. He knows something about human biology and the fight game. Guy's an absolute beast. I've never met Mike in person, but Mayo did meet him multiple times and was just like, that guy's an absolute tank. So pound for pound on this stream, I've seen Cody hit some bags before, but he's kind of small, not going to lie. But pound for pound, Mike kills all of us. Mike.
What's up, guys? Just like Dan just said, it's an honor to be here. Obviously, Cody and Paul have had this show. This has been their baby for 7 to 8 years. So just for them to kind of trust us, to kind of move over and do what they're going to do and allow us to kind of take it over, it's an honor, and it really shows trust. It shows value, and it shows that they know it's going to probably be in good hands with us. I've been in the space for a long time. Like Paul said, I do own the MadlabMMA.com, where we do DFS, we do wagering, we do a little bit of everything. I'm a lifelong combat sports enthusiast. I've boxed since I was a little kid, moved over to martial arts, and I just love it. I got such a passion for this. And I hope to, spread some knowledge on you guys, have some good banter, get some good picks, and make some money in this show.
100%. Cody, you have any little point of wisdom, anything to share with the group before Dan leads us off with all the picks here?
Yeah, no, this is not farewell or anything like that. As if our show will continue, and then you got, just as Dan said, you've got another great show now being constructed on Mayo Media Network. So Pat's always had a dedication to keeping MMA on his channel. I used to live with Pat in Toronto for a couple of years. We've been running on the Mayo Media Network for a number of years now. Mad Lab, I mean, we've been interacting. Geez, that feels in itself like it's been almost 7 or 8 years, like pre-COVID, way pre-COVID. So, yeah, I mean, you're just getting more MMA content. You're getting two great minds. If I could sit on the show with Paul and do it as a 4-man show for the end of time, then I'd be all for it. Unfortunately, it just seemed like it was a great business opportunity and a great move for Paul and I to kind of venture off and do something on our own. So we've got 12 really good fights to talk about on a hot UFC pay-per-view. Whether this is the best UFC pay-per-view of the year, maybe not. But if we can win some bets, then who really cares? And you've got 4 good guys here that are going to break it down, talk about it, figure out what the consensus picks are, figure if we can find any holes in each other's arguments, and hopefully slap together some winners for you guys so that the first new venture of Dogger Pass is a winning one, and then these guys can take the reins and do their thing. But I have full trust that it's in good hands and that the direction of the show will continue to go in a positive direction. And for Paul and I, it's like, this is a great opportunity for us to kind of do our own thing. So just happy to be here. And Pat asked me to jump on and do it. And when I found out who the new hosts were going to be, it was definitely something that got my blessing. So yeah, let's break into some fights, guys.
And the most important thing is that we're in Canada for this card, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And like the classic thing, anytime the UFC is in Canada with us two Canucks up here, it's like, oh, Canadian bias. These guys just pick all the Canadians. Like everyone gets mad at us if we pick a Canadian. They never really mention if we fade a Canadian, but that's neither here nor there. Dan, you are the host of this show at this point. Why don't you lead us off with the first fight of the night?
I will. And again, just, it's going to be funnier the second show when you guys aren't here. People are going to be tuning in fresh. Like, I want to be in their head. Or they're going to think it's like, is this like Paul Shag stunt double? And well, I don't really look like Cody. So maybe I guess I'm Bollywood Cody Saftic, but that'll probably be some shock value. But on with the show here, guys. Of course, it's a great card, UFC 315, at least by UFC standards. They at least try to step it up. I know Canada, I feel like they've owed you guys, a lot these last few years, but we got a title fight at the top. Got Belal Muhammad defending the welterweight title as the favorite, -161 with the comeback. Your challenger, Jack Della Maddalena, +141 in the neighborhood of course. Totals for this one, guys, set at 4.5 rounds with your over coming in at -200 and under in the neighborhood of +160. I don't want to step on too much of this fight, so I'm just going to give a little bit of dusting on the top, and I'm going to send it over to the new co-host, and we'll finish strong with you guys. If we'll go with that order, if that's all right. Do a little Mike, Paul, and finish strong with Cody there.
That's good.
So this one basically, I wanted to look at the underdog here, saw some value, mainly just because my analysis of Della Maddalena, he's a switch stance hitter. And obviously he's got some finishes and some knockdowns with his right hand, probably right hand dominant if I had to guess, but his left hand, especially from southpaw, is kind of like his cleanup hitter, gets a lot of finishes from there. And although Belal Muhammad, I believe 6-2-1 officially, perhaps 7-2-1 now, just beat Leon Edwards right in his last fight. Did well against a southpaw there, actually uses his jab and whatnot. That being said, regardless of the stance, whether we're talking about the Luke K left hook from orthodox, or those southpaw double attacks that at least in the first fight, Leon Edwards was much more better with. Left-sided strikes are the common culprit, like throughout Muhammad's career, even going back to that last fight. So for me, that's going to make Della Maddalena a very live dog throughout. However, it's hard not to like the game planning preparation. I don't think anybody really game plans better than Belal Muhammad right now in any division. He's one of those guys that just comes in prepared, even when he's not feeling at his best, like his last fight that was like at 2 a.m. or whatever. He still toughed it through, made no excuses. He's a guy that's going to fight for your dollar. He's a guy that's, you're going to have to kind of kill to get him out of there. So my pick's going to be Belal by decision, but I'm more interested to see what you guys have to say, because I'm not feeling too strong on a bet right now on this fight. Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, so when I came, say his full name 3 times in a row fast. See if you can do it.
I'd probably end up sounding like Michael Schiavello, Della Maddalena.
Yeah.
At a certain point.
Whenever a striker comes on that's boxing dominant, I always look for reasons. I mean, I am biased with my boxing guys. So that's one thing that JDM does really, really well. He's a long range striker, maintains range really well, uses the real estate of the cage really well, ties his punches together. He understands the kinesiology of boxing as far as, where the body goes, the head will lead. So he's really good that way. Also, if you look at him, when he does get taken down, he has a tendency of finding his way back to his feet. He's got a good butterfly guard and such like that. So he is pretty well-rounded. But if you look at, a couple fights where if there is a blueprint for him, they have been kind of exposed a little bit. Whether you're successful or not, that's a different story. But the path to least resistance for him is apply that pressure and take him down. Look at Basil Hafez. Guy comes in, he utilizes that for the first couple rounds, kind of takes him down, applies the pressure, doesn't allow him to open up and extend too much, gasses out. He ends up losing that fight. You go over to the Gilbert Burns fight, even though he did win that fight against Gilbert Burns did a really good job taking him down. I think he was like 6 for 10 for takedowns, but when he really, really committed to the takedowns, he was able to ground him and he was able to kind of put him in certain spots. Now, when I look at a guy like Belal, he's a guy who, I'll be completely transparent here, he was never a guy that I was like super induced to watch fight. You know, I understand why the fan base and the casual fan base will look at him and say, well, you know, he's really not that, you know, he's not that exciting. He goes to the cards. Something happened with him when he went over to train with Khabib. Everything became another gear. Everything became more clinical. Everything became more convicted. Even his takedowns, his shots, you know, the high crotch he landed on Leon Edwards, like everything was just with so much more conviction and confidence that I think he knows like how to win. Do I believe him in his press conferences when he says I'm going to knock him out? Absolutely not. I think if he stands with JDM for 15 minutes, he's in trouble. For 25 minutes, he's in trouble, but I just don't see that. I think, you know, smarter heads prevail in fights and styles make matchups. And I just think that Belal knows that I'll stand with him a little bit. I'll toy with him a little bit. You know, I'll throw some traps out, put some bait out there, see what he's biting on. But at the end of the day, I'm going back to my bread and butter. I'm going to take this guy down and I'm going to win minutes. And ultimately, that's how I think it's going to go down. I do think Belal wins this fight by decision. I do think that JDM is an absolute live dog, but I'll be honest with you, that minus 160 isn't looking too bad to me. With Belal.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised of like the market movement this week. When, you know, just a few days ago, Belal was like minus 200. I'm not surprised that, like, you know, back in April he was down to like minus 280 and people started taking the underdog. Like, it's welterweight. JDM's on a enormous winning streak. I believe he lost his first 2 fights of his career. But and again, I'm kind of like Mike in the sense that, like, I haven't always been a Belal Muhammad believer, truther, I suppose. Guys cost me a whole bunch of money, so, you know, take it for what it's worth. I'm actually taking them this time, so it would be very, 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 very on brand for what's his name again? Oh yeah, remember that, Belal. It would be very on brand for him to actually do what he's saying in press conferences right now. Try to come out here and just box and get his head knocked off. I think what cost me a whole bunch of money over the years was that Luque fight from like the McGregor card. I believe that was the Alvarez card in New York City many, many moons ago. I just like that one just got implanted in me. It's just like I kind of faded Belal so many times. He's definitely cost me a whole bunch of money. Could cost me more, but I'm shocked by like the line movement this week and like the comments that we've gotten, because we already broke down this card over on our Bookie Beatdown channel on Tuesday night. And like a lot of people are backing JDM. I look at the same things as Mike did. The Hafez fight, not that Hafez won, not that it should have even been a split, but the fact that he had 6 minutes of control time, was able to slow down the pace, and really get JDM out of a lot of his rhythm. That was there. And then I look at the Burns fight, and it's like, yeah, there were 7 takedowns, and yeah, he wasn't able to hold them down. But the biggest problem, I think, for Burns versus Muhammad in this fight is Muhammad could do the same thing. He's not going to gas. So Belal is the pick for me as well. Cody? Yeah.
I mean, it's a good fight in that Jack Maddalena is 8 years younger, right? And just like Mike Madlab had mentioned, is that he's got a good ability to scramble and get back up to his feet. So I think we expect him to get taken down. But one, if Belal Muhammad comes in with a game plan of strike, then Jack Della has probably got his number on in the striking department. If this fight does hit the ground, then yeah, he's just got to keep scrambling, win those exchanges. When you look at Belal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards, he's mixing in these takedowns. Leon Edwards has a lot of good scrambles as well, but Leon's 33, and he's no doubt about it, he's slowing down a little bit. Jack, when you look at a guy like Gilbert Burns, right? Belal Muhammad defeats him as well. Gilbert Burns is 36 years old at the time, so he can out-scramble those guys. But if Della can continuously get back up to his feet, we keep seeing it time and time again in the UFC, is that 3 minutes of control time, 3.5 minutes of control time gets eclipsed by 1 minute of exploding back up to your feet and then loading on your opponent. So I do feel like a lot of these rounds will be close. I do feel like there's going to be some subjectiveness to the judges. What style are they looking at? But I do feel like Belal Muhammad pressures forward, throws in combination, has decent volume, and mixing in the takedowns late in the round would allow him to win these rounds. Paul and I discussed the fact that Jack Della, although a formidable contender, he's the number 5 ranked welterweight in the world. He's not the number 1 contender. It's not Shavkat Rakhmonov. It wasn't here's the best guy in the division. It's here's the best available guy in the division in watch Jack Della. He's got his opportunity here to shock the world, spring the upset, and become a world champion. But it's not as if he's earned his way to the world championship. He's not beaten a Kamaru Usman. He's not beaten an Ian Gary. He's not beaten even a former champ, a guy like Colby Covington, who's a little bit not what he used to be. You know, he's washed at this stage, but at least has that name. Instead, he's squeaked by Basil Hafez in a very close fight. You want a split decision over Kevin Holland in a very close fight. And then he loses the first 2 rounds against Gilbert Burns before making some magic happen. It's been a real easy road to the title for him. And for that reason, I feel like Belal Muhammad is the clear favorite. Now, you can't compare it to boxing, but I will compare it a little bit. When you look at a fight like Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor, it should be Floyd minus 10,000. But people hate him, and they like Conor McGregor. So the line ends up being way closer for some reason. When you look at a more recent example, like a Jake Paul versus a Mike Tyson, Jake Paul should be a minus 10,000 favorite, but because everybody hates him and they like Mike Tyson, it's actually a bettable line. Belal, for whatever reason, they don't like him. They don't like his style. They don't like his character. They don't like his personality. Everybody wants to see him get folded, and I feel like that's the reason why everybody's backing Jack Della, not necessarily on what you're seeing on tape and the skills. The fact that he's younger, the fact that he's a better striker, he has a path to victory. He has an avenue that he could spring the upset. But for me, I feel like we're going to have 2 and news this Saturday, and that's going to start with the main event, or that's going to end with the main event, I should say, where Belal Muhammad is victorious in defending that title.
Great points there, Cody. Great points. And I do believe, yeah, it is going to be a competitive fight. Although I am siding with Belal for the same reasons that, Paul and Mike pointed out with the takedowns. I've also been a defender of Jack Della Maddalena and his turtle guard. Shout out to the jiu-jitsu heads who know the Eduardo Telles name, one of my favorite guys. He was like a middleweight / guy who could make welterweight. And they say don't turtle in MMA or jiu-jitsu, you give your back. And you go look up like him grappling Gabe Gonzaga at heavyweight, and he's got Gabe Gonzaga like afraid to, take his back. And Jack Della Maddalena actually does like similar tricks. It's really cool. However, those tricks worked in his Contender Series fight with Angelusa, and they worked a lot less with Basil Hafez. And obviously, once he got to the Gilbert Burns level, say what you will about Burns at this advanced stage of his career. So yeah, I agree with that. It's going to be closer, but it also feels like perhaps one of those 2 true outcome fights where, a Jack Della Maddalena KO bet is almost the same as his money line. And perhaps you could argue a Belal decision, prop is almost the same as his money line. If you're, really looking to get some action, but you don't want to overexpose one way or another. Just wanted to add that in there before we move on to the next. Anything else to add in, guys, before we move on to the co-main here?
Paul, what's the Jack Maddalena split decision? Because if the place is booing every time there's any grappling and they're cheering every time Jack lands a minute combination, then this thing might look a lot closer than it really is, and it could be a greaser. But yeah, barring some crazy prop bet like that, I don't know. I expect it to be competitive, but it sounds like all 4 of us are on Belal to win this thing by grinding it out. So could be a close fight, but it feels like we're all on the same page ultimately.
Yeah, and I just want to point out one thing that Cody did say that reigns to be true, and people out there that do gamble and do bet, fan optics sometimes do sway these lines. Because you do have a lot of casual bettors now with some of these companies where it's legal in every state. And yeah, sure, they're not whales. They're not coming in or not moving the line significantly. But when you have a couple 100,000 people doing $20, those lines, that money adds up and those lines move. So there are, like he said about the Conor and Mayweather fight, I was blown out of my gills that line was as close as it was. But you had the Conor McGregor fandom coming in. Everybody, he's going to do it. You had, announcers, people saying that he was going to beat him, and the money starts flying. And that line starts moving. So Belal's a likable guy, like for the hardcores, but for the casuals, some people maybe don't like him so much. And they want to see a changing of the guard. So the money will start flying that way.
Yeah, I have a similar situation with Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson earlier this year.
Yeah.
That night, my brother sends me a message on WhatsApp, and he's just like, "Who do you got in the fight tonight?" And I'm like, "Oh, I've got my biggest bet of probably the last 2 years on Jake Paul." He's like, "Really? I'm at like a hockey tournament with all these hockey dads, and we all think Mike Tyson's gonna knock his head off." And I'm like, that makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
How much money?
Yep.
Like, why is this number staying? Why is it not moving? It happens a lot, especially. I mean, not that this fight is on like that type of level of popularity, but yeah, the markets are a lot different than they used to be. CLV is nice because you get more money when you win, but it's not the be all end all in MMA like it used to.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, to segue off that, I don't think this one is a hand for hand analog of this example. I believe this is more of a traditional MMA market move where you have the older, even if it's the sitting champion, the older sitting fighter, and the new hotness on the scene. Perhaps that was reflected in the opening betting line, albeit slightly, but with a public push, we now have the challenger, Manon Fiorot, minus 138 against the sitting champion, Valentina Shevchenko, plus 118. Just like the main event, guys, they got this one totaled at 4.5 rounds, with the over coming in at a minus 310 and the under at plus 250. I guess we'll just keep the same order here. This is really interesting. We got Southpaw versus Southpaw. And even though perhaps it was more of an experience thing with nickel and RDR, I always say, no matter who you think has these experience edges, or on paper edges, I should say, in the striking department, Southpaw versus Southpaw throws it on its head. As a Southpaw, I can tell you that, even though I'm in class, people are like, oh, you're a Southpaw, I don't want to pair with you. I just want to be like, hey, man, MFer, no one hates going with Southpaws more than other Southpaws because most people are orthodox. So we predicate our games against orthodox opposition. When you go against Southpaw, the distances are not only different, but now they're much closer. And those left crosses are really potent. And we saw that even with a non-traditional Southpaw, Alexa Grasso, being able to, win and retain her title, at least in the second fight of her series with Shevchenko, through big moments coming off that Southpaw stance and kind of surprised Shevchenko. However, I went back and rewatched the series, and Shevchenko actually surprisingly got sharper, which is surprising, for, again, a sitting fighter. Usually, and perhaps this is reflective in the line, guys. Gamblers, traditionally we love to fade the older fighter, right? Oh, the bottom's going to drop out. But she actually got sharper through the series. Now, Grasso also arguably laid an egg in that last Noche fight. That aside, Shevchenko still looked good, and she looked good in the Southpaw versus Southpaw matchup. Leg kicks, a good lead hand presence, and a left hand. Now, Fiorot does throw more volume, surprisingly not as much on the stats, which can be a little tricky, but she only really clocks about a clip to a clip and a half more on that stat point ratio, strikes landed per minute. Not too much. And again, you have to remember that Shevchenko, say what you will about her, I don't like her style, I don't like her fights. Well, there's a good reason for that. If you're of that opinion, it's because she's a counter fighter, and counter strikers, especially of her level, can bring about ugly fights, especially if the other fighter has countering sensibilities, which Fiorot actually does and has relied on more as the step up in competitions and the threats have gotten higher. Now, Blanchfield wasn't able to threaten too much with the wrestling. She's arguably undersized, had some bad entries. Fiorot was in control, and it wasn't at the most torrid pace. However, that flagging gas tank that we've seen in Fiorot in 3-round fights, you kind of saw that a bit. It didn't make a difference, of course, but we did see that a bit in the Blanchfield fight. So I don't know if it's a volume and younger fighter overworking as much as maybe the odds slightly suggest. But what has me tipping to the Shevchenko side ultimately, as I'm going to pass it on to Mike here, was the grappling. We haven't seen anybody really test Fiorot. She is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. She recently got it just before her second to last fight, training with some higher level ones in the camp for whatever that's worth. But we haven't seen her tested. Her athleticism and physicality has saved her. And say what you will about Shevchenko, I think she can match that physicality and at the very least test her. So you're going to give me some inflated dog odds on the more proven product in 5-round fights. That's better gas tank. Yeah, man, I actually, the only bet that, I think I have locked in at the moment is a shot on Shevchenko. And I think I'm going to maybe hedge that by parlaying the over, with something lower down on the card that I'll give you guys a heads up on. But Mike, what do you got on this, man?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that about the counter striking susceptibility, because I noticed that too right out of the gate. A lot of people look at her from the outside and are like, well, she's bigger, she can be the bully in there, she can kind of push her way into situations that she wants you to go into, and you're either going to have to fight your way out of it or you're going to have to retreat. And obviously optics with the judges, they're looking at the person pushing forward, throwing the more heat, being the more aggressive person, lobbying, jockeying for position on the cage and stuff like that. You looked at, but if you really look at when she fights, she kind of has a tendency to engage and disengage, and engage and disengage. And It's almost like she picks and chooses her spot when to do so. And when she does so, it's dangerous. We all know that she's big for the division, but if you a lot of people just keep leaning on that. She's big for the division. She's big for the division. But if you look at Erin Blanchfield, this is a girl who's from my hometown. I'm very, very well versed with that whole Silver Fox camp. And they're great grapplers, and especially the women there. The women in that school, Danielle Kelly, they have over there. They're just very, very well versed grapplers. But there's a big difference between being a very good grappler on the ground and being a wrestler. You got to be able to get it there. And Erin Blanchfield just, very raw, very good grappler. Her striking obviously was kind of pedestrian, for a while, and her getting it to the ground just really wasn't there for her. So I didn't have my high hopes for her in that fight. Then you look at Rose Namajunas, as technical as Rose Namajunas is, I wouldn't consider her a muscle bully. She's kind of smooth. She doesn't have the biggest strength index in the world. She had her spots too, though, when I was noticed, man, and saw the technical abilities of Rose, and she started backing up a little bit, and she started utilizing the real estate a little bit more, backing her up to the warning track and using her range management a little bit better. And she does it well. It's when you are more of a bully, or you're projected to be more of a bully, and you have that ability to step back and get on your back foot and counter a little bit and do it well and catch your people at the end of the punches, that's just a feather in her cap. But a lot of people were looking at the Valentina fight against Alexa Grasso, and I don't think the first fight anybody really thought it was going to go like that. But there is something to be said about, certain people match up just perfectly together. I mean, Cody will attest to this. Back in the day with boxing, you had Barrera Morales, you had Gaddy Ward. Doesn't mean these guys were the greatest fighters. Just the other week, we had Eubanks and Ben. Doesn't mean these guys are great fighters or these girls are great fighters, but they just match up perfectly for battle. They just have each other's number on a chess match where you're going to get a good fight. And if you really look at the optics of that fight, like Valentina owned majority of that first fight until obviously she got caught. Then obviously the next fight came around. It was a much closer fight. Alexa Grasso made her adjustments, and it was there. And then Valentina took over in the third fight. I think people kind of look into that a little bit, and they think like, well, she's taking a little bit of a downtick. She's been in this game for so long. Like, when is the wheel going to fall off? But when you look at her and you look at her body somatotype too, she's strong also. She's not this little, weak, striker. This girl has some power behind her. Yes, she does things that you could pretty much look at and say, here she goes, spinning back fist coming. She does things, and she does make her mistakes. But at the end of the day, she's so seasoned. She's so technical. She's been in there with so many people. And I got to be honest with you, I don't know where her ceiling is with grappling. I mean, every time I see her, you got to wonder, like, how good is her grappling? Like, because we're so used to seeing her showcase her striking and her striking and her striking. But when she goes in a match, she looks sometimes unstoppable. I don't think I think she's gonna have issues taking the fight to the ground. And my biggest objective here is her cage IQ. Is she going to be smart about it and take it there? Because I think that is her clear path there. Test this girl on the ground. Yeah, she's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but all black belts aren't created equal. So take this girl to the ground. Test her chops on the ground and see what she has. Drag her into deep waters. See make this a battle of who has more tricks in your bag. And I think if she does that, and I think if she fights smart and she follows the proper blueprint, I don't see how I can't take Valentina at plus money. I think she's only been a dog like 3 times in her UFC slate. And if you're giving me, dog money on a proven champion, Manon's got to show me first. So I like Valentina as a dog here.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add. I tend to agree with most of the things and most of the things that you guys said. And what it really comes down to for me, and it's no fault of Manon Fiorot. It could be like, we just haven't seen it yet. Nobody's been successful with it. But like, people forget with Rose went 0 for 6 on takedowns, but has never been the greatest offensive wrestler. And on top of that, that was her first fight at 125 moving up, and she hurt her hand during that fight. People forget that as well. So
that's right, the finger.
Yeah, there were a lot of things kind of working against Rose, and she didn't get close to the takedowns, but like the striking exchanges were damn close in that. Maybe we learn after this fight that it's like, all right, Fiorot is super, super strong. Valentina can't take her down, but it's like, until Valentina gets her hands on her and starts looking for, body lock trips and everything else that she does to get the fight to the mat, like, you give me plus money, it's like, I'm going to have to stick with the champ. Like, I do worry a little bit. Like, we did see Grasso, which led to the split drop Valentina. I think she's been through a lot of wars. She's, been in there with Amanda Nunes, and everybody under the sun has been in there with Shevchenko at this point. All the best fighters in women's history, really. No disrespect to Ronda Rousey, but that is the one concern. Maybe Fiorot just hits so hard that maybe she can clip her. Maybe she can get her out of here. It's been 4 fights since she's really done anything like that, but she knocked out Tabitha Ricci, who is not exactly an easy out by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, plus 118 right now. And still for me, Valentina Shevchenko.
Okay, Tabitha Ricci is also a 115. She's tiny. So, yeah, I mean, and I think that's her UFC debut. She's short notice. She jumps up, Fiorot takes her out. Outside of that, it's just like Caitlin Chikagian. It's just like Holly Holm. It's more of a touch-and-go type of style, right? I mean, I don't want to call it sparring, but it's a point style of fighting. I can hit you. I can jump out of the pocket. I can move laterally. I can use my footwork. I can set stuff up. But, yeah, I mean, you haven't seen anybody stick to a wrestling-heavy game plan. You guys already touched all the bases. The fight with Rose Namajunas, it's her first fight coming up from 115. She goes 0 for 6, but she's not exactly the best grappler in the division, the best offensive wrestler, I should say. And also she's moving up that weight class. So could somebody like Shevchenko implore that? I think so. Erin Blanchfield, her last time out, shot 3 takedown attempts. Like Blanchfield is a ridiculously good grappler, ridiculously good with her submission attempts, ridiculously good when she's on top. And yet sometimes she makes very little effort to get those fights to the ground. I feel like Shevchenko fights with a high ring IQ. She knows how to blend in high striking, high kickboxing, along with her high-level wrestling and grappling skills as well. 16 fights Valentina Shevchenko's had in the UFC. She's taken down 15 of those 16 opponents. Only time she's not been taken down would have been the second fight with Amanda Nunes, where she failed to take her down, and otherwise a pretty competitive fight. Point being is that she's taken her opponent down in her last 11 fights. Yeah, she's fought Grasso her last number, but again, shot 12 takedowns and got 8 of them her last time. Prior to that, goes 3 for 7. She's capable of sticking to a grappling-heavy game plan, and that's what I'd like to see. I mean, the name of the show is Dogger Pass. You have a close fight. It's striker versus grappler. You could see a good argument for both sides, but one of them has plus money. One of them's the underdog. And in this case, you have the defending champion as plus money value. You don't see that every day. So I ended up just taking the flyer on the underdog, but ended up being Valentina Shevchenko. And yes, she's got to blend her grappling in with her striking as well. But who better to do it than the champ? There's a reason why she's fought all the best contenders in the division in up a weight class as well. She's very, very high caliber. She's a first ballot Hall of Famer. She's definitely got a legacy on the table, but she's done all that through high ring IQ. And so if she just does it one more time here, I think she'll be able to pull out the victory over Fiorot.
Wow, guys. I mean, 4 panelists in the Dogger Pass show, we're all picking a female underdog, and not one of us even had to cite the Pat Mayo CF dot model. Does that make it even more of a potent pick for that fact that we didn't even have to go to the our boy, the Pat Mayo well? Wow.
These odds are too tight for it to be a proper CF DOP. CF DOP is like when you got like a plus 500. Nobody knows anything about but I'm just kidding. But
I'm going
no, great point.
No, I'm just kidding.
I will say every time the UFC comes to Canada, they're like, oh, these Canadian fans are rabid. They'll watch anything. So they usually put a super lackluster card together, but almost always there's a pattern that there's a second title fight. It's always a women's fight. Last time they're in Canada, Moreno versus Albazi, the co-main event's Rose versus Blanchfield. Prior to that, they're in Toronto, Strickland versus Duplessis. Co-main events were Cal Pennington versus Maribuena Silva. Prior to that, UFC 289, it was physically Pena versus Nunes was the main event. Before that, Holloway versus Edgar in Edmonton, UFC 240, co-main event Cyborg versus Felicia Spencer. So the UFC knows what they're doing. And they're like, here's a second title fight. Get excited about it. But you've got an aged Val versus a not the most exciting Manon Fiorot, 2 older fighters. But we're hoping Shevchenko pulls one off for old time's sake.
Yeah. Last thing I just want to add on and bounce off you guys, because you mentioned the X factor. It's the Canada no firearms factor, guys. Almost 100 UFCs ago, Valentina Shevchenko came to Canada for a title fight against Amanda Nunes, to add on to Cody's previous point there, right? With the UFC's booking schedule, and she came up short. And if we know anything about Valentina and her, her coach, Pavel Fedotov, Freudian slip. Pavel Fedotov, sorry about that. If you know anything about him, you probably got that slip, but you know that they're always strapped, man. Like, what's the laws there? They're not going to be able to. Is it going to be like Vitor without his TRT guys? Is that what we're looking at up here? Or?
I don't know if the stats still hold true for this, but per capita, at least I've been saying this for 10 years, and like I haven't looked it up
capita.
since. So like I could be dead wrong at this point. So somebody maybe, somebody in the comment section would be like, "You're wrong about this." But I know like 10 years ago, per capita, Canadians own more guns, but like handguns are illegal. So it's like it's all like people.
Oh, are they? They're illegal in Canada?
Yeah, no handguns.
They're illegal now. There's a handgun ban like 4 years ago. So if you
I don't
have a
know.
handgun
Wow.
already,
You can have it.
yeah, but they got a buyback program. They're trying to come back and take them, man. It's communism up here. You gotta watch yourself. But they're trying to, your AR-15 can't use that no more. They're trying to buy that back as well. So there's a whole
people where Cody live, they all have their rifles and stuff for hunting. Like there's per capita, Canadians used to actually have more guns per person.
Wow.
But yeah, it's like the people who have guns would have like 15 guns and they go duck hunting. No handguns though.
Wow, that's crazy.
You guys remember Darren Cruikshank from the UFC, right? So Darren Cruikshank lives in Michigan, which is like a stone throw over the border. Like literally there's not much separating where he's at in Detroit from, say, Windsor on the Canadian side. And he's got like a full arsenal. Like, I mean, you can have pretty well whatever you want in Michigan, that you could supply like a small 500-man militia with the stuff that this guy's got, where then you go right across the border and it's like, no handguns. You can't have I spent a lot of time in Tennessee. It's open carry state. Like if you want to walk around with a gun holstered, you're allowed to. Yeah, there's nothing like that here. So Shevchenko's been here before. I know she actually spent a couple weeks. Like she likes to come and spend time in the area that she's fighting and do her camp there. That's why she's just moved her camp so many places around. But yeah, I mean, we've seen her coach Pavel have to shoot a man in a bar one time or a restaurant one time because they got too close. What would they do in this situation? I don't know. Probably call the police and wait for 20 to 30 minutes for someone to show up and then take a report about the dead body there. Like it's a kind of a broken system if we're being real. They're not in Ontario, they're in Quebec, so it's not so much better there as well. But yeah, no guns coming across.
I said many years ago that Valentina and her sister, I mean, they don't look like each other. Like they're clearly double agents. Like they're spies. Pavel doesn't really fit into the mix. And it's like anytime any weird stuff comes out about them, I just double down on my take that it's like none of like what their identity is real. Like they're literally secret agents for like,
Well, one's blonde hair, blue-eyed. The other one is a brunette with brown eyes. So one of them has like a light complexion. The other one has a darker complexion. They're both from Kyrgyzstan, but I don't know. Their coaches
are they from Kyrgyzstan?
Exactly.
They could be from anywhere. They could be from anywhere.
Look at Valentina's Instagram. I mean, the way she even holds a gun. I mean, she looks like she's a part of the KGB.
She's got a bunch of arms training. Yeah, they're notorious for shooting a whole lot of weaponry. She's obviously good at hand-to-hand combat. And if you put her in a cocktail dress at a party, she wouldn't look out of place. So it's like, who better to go kill you at some point, right?
She could be a movie star. She could be a movie star if she just had a different voice. Like she would be like a James Bond character if she had a different sultry voice.
I am legit surprised they have not made a movie about her, but you guys know who they did make a movie about, right?
Who?
José Aldo, the king of Rio, minus 193. Comeback on Aiemann Zahabi. Hey, man, Aiemann Zahabi, who may or may not owe me a succulent Chinese meal, plus 168. They got this total set at 2.5 rounds. Apologies for the rough transition there. We had the over coming in at minus 370. Wow, really high on that. Under 2.5 rounds plus 295. Again, apologies for the brutal segue on that one, guys. I saw my shot and I had to take the shot.
Good.
But yeah, I am excited about this one. It might not be the most exciting fight. I like it because I don't think Aiemann Zahabi is going to be holding José Aldo up against the cage. If anything, Aiemann Zahabi, if you watch his fights, he's the one usually with that cage position, not with his back up against it. He likes to skirt off the side of the cage and, squirt on the outside. He's going to have the big cage to work with. Man, I joked, Aiemann Zahabi, real nice guy. Met him in person, and he doesn't owe me anything, but he's definitely gonna not owe me anything if he finds out that I'm picking José Aldo against him, guys. I don't disagree with the line here. This is a similar attitude that I have to the main event, where I'm spoiler alert, I'm picking the favorite here, but I'm not like rushing to the. Not that I'm saying I won't by the end of the week, but I'm not rushing to the betting window on this one. at least on the Jose Aldo side, as the favorite. Like, I don't blame anybody who has, the dog or pass approach on this one, because I believe that Zahabi, it's going to look probably ugly for him at first. The line's going to be beating a circle all night as far as the jab goes. We saw the jab provide him some problems there in his fight with Basharat, which was deceptively close for those that don't remember it. It came down to a big moment toward the end of round 2 and a competitive round 3 to secure that one up for Aiemann. But if you look at it, it's kind of been a common culprit that's been there, even though he's got a good jab himself, by the way. Jabbing with Jose Aldo is always a tough ask. Aiemann, he changes up his footwork. You can tell the game plan really excellently depending on their opponent. Expect him to have some stagger step footwork, perhaps circling to a strategic direction. Although Max Holloway showed you can be successful circling both. Not very many people are Max Holloway. So it's going to be walking a fine line for a Zahabi victory. But I do think he's a live dog. I don't blame anybody for picking or playing him here, but I think we get a competitive striking match. And until the bottom fully drops out of Jose Aldo, perhaps we still have the post-prime Aldo getting another win here. But I'm curious if you guys have any stronger opinions than me on this one. Where you at, Mike?
So, I mean, I'll keep mine pretty short. I always said that, first of all, I want to ask Cody and Paul a question. Cody, given that how beloved Jose Aldo is, we all know, if you're a UFC fan, you love Jose Aldo, and Zahabi's from Canada. Who is it? Is this a home bout for him, or is it kind of split? What I mean? It's kind of weird, right? It's going to be a weird vibe in the arena for that.
Yeah, well, on one hand, it's like it's Faraz's younger brother, and of course, it's George St. Pierre's head coach, and there's this long lineage, especially in Quebec. But yeah, he's been fighting professionally for 15 years, and he has 15 fights. He's never been super active. He doesn't have any super big notable victories. I wouldn't say that Aiemann Zahabi is some great figure over here. Likely because he is the French fighter, there's going to be people cheering for him. I'm hoping if it's a close decision, they give it to the old legend instead of the hometown guy. But yeah, I agree with the sentiment that it's going to be a weird vibe. It's going to be probably a striker versus striker, likely a close fight, and could be competitive. My Zahabi story is one time Paul and I are smoking cigs outside of the show with this guy, and then we're like, "Who are you here to see?" And he's like, "I'm actually fighting on the show." We're just like, "No way, who you fight?" He's like, Aiemann Zahabi. It was Aiemann Zahabi's pro debut.
The guy was 0-8.
Really? Yeah.
The guy
was 0-7, I think, at the time. And then he was 0-8 after he fought Aiemann Zahabi.
Yeah, his name is Kyle Vivian. So we were smoking cigs with him, and then he goes in to fight Aiemann Zahabi, and we go back to our seats, and we're like, this guy's going to get killed. And then he got killed. Ryan Hall was on that show. Live Obe Mercier was on that show. Alex Garcia was on that show. It was like a loaded local friend show. Our buddy Robin Black, it was his retirement fight. That's why he went to it. But I spilled the beer on Rory McDonald. He wasn't happy. Anyways, it was a long time ago. But that was like, oh man, he likes to can crush. And you look at the early portion of his career, he's can crushing largely. His UFC debut is against Reginaldo Vieira, the Tough Brazil 3 champion. Watch that one back. He arguably robs Reginaldo Vieira. So I've never personally been that high on him. People here haven't been all that high on him, but he continues to win. And now you can't deny that he's on a nice little win streak here. He's beaten over credible enough guys like Javid Basharat, picking up some solid victories. There's a little more hype that's starting to accrue here, but he's a little bit older. He lacks that big finishing power. If he's not going to pull a Mario Batista and spam cage control, and Paul and I discussed this on Tuesday, that's not his style. He doesn't do that over anybody. He's not taking down anybody. How is he going to take down a guy that's got historically some of the best takedown defense in divisional history? Well, I guess that's at 45. But all the same, guy had some of the best takedown defense at 45. Now he's at 135. Jose Aldo's starting to running out of magic. You can see the signs are starting to be there. The cracks are starting to show themselves. Maybe he's not that same big leg kicker as he used to be, but there's still something there. He still lands those bigger power shots. And if Zahabi's path to victory here is using jabs and low kicks, minding his P's and Q's, and staying to the outside, I feel like Jose Aldo just steps in the pocket, uses his superior hand speed and boxing, work the body a little bit, have those big awe moments. The crowd will get behind him. But on a betting standpoint, I feel like he's a little bit too big of a favorite. I expect a close fight. It could be one of these close decision type of spots. Him versus Marlon Vera from a few years back. Had he not got that third round takedown right to a back take, he's losing that fight as well. So he's not the same Jose Aldo that we know and we love, but I still do think he wins this fight.
Yeah, to answer Mike's question from earlier, I don't expect them to boo Jose Aldo.
Right.
They'll be cheering for Zahabi, that gym just has so much history, and George St. Pierre, everything that Cody said in that respect. But it's just like you'd have to be heartless to boo Jose Aldo.
Because I saw that, I was very curious about that. I was like, I got to ask these guys. But I agree. I mean, what Cody said. The thing I have the issue with here is, you got to wonder, when is the wheel going to fall off? Like, eventually it happens to everybody. Superman, Batman, whoever it is, the wheel eventually falls off. And I always used to say that if there was one guy that I can train under, I'm a very philosophy-based guy. And Zahabi is just a philosophy-based, genius. If you listen to the way he talks, his philosophy on fighting, his approach, almost like John Danaher with grappling, right? Two philosophy-based guys. So if anybody's going to draw up a game plan for his brother, and you need to be creative-minded to train under someone like Freeze. You need to understand his vision to really, roll out his blueprint. And obviously his brother, he's been around him his whole life. He knows how to implement that. But if anyone's going to draw up the right blueprint to attack this fight and to win this fight, it's going to be Zahabi. It's going to be his brother. I just keep going back to, his style, as far as he's not really a big engaging style. He's not spitting out a lot of output. He will when he has to, but ultimately he will allow you to kind of dictate terms inside that cage. And when I look at Aldo, it's like, what if the wheel doesn't fall off in this fight? He's going to be sharper. He's got the speed. He's got great takedown defense, like Cody said, and he's got the body work. I think it's going to really come down to his body work in this fight. When he's shooting to that body, those hands start dropping, it opens up to the head. And I just think he's going to gain little increments of ground in each round to win this fight. Now, like Cody said, am I rushing to the window to bet this fight? No. Like I said, you're dealing with an older vet where the wheel can fall off in any day, and you're dealing with a world-class trainer with philosophies, with his brother being on a hot streak. So I think it's going to be a close fight, but I think if you're looking at the ebbs and flows of it, I think the more damage is going to come from the Aldo side. And I just think the better optics will be from the Aldo side. So I think he probably, wins 29-28 decision. Maybe I could even see this being a split decision, but I am leaning definitely for Jose Aldo.
Split decision, good call. I was thinking the same thing, is that if it's going to be, they're both natural counter punchers. Zahabi's waiting for you to throw first so he can counter off of you. That's why a lot of his fights, he's waiting. Basharat gets, he gets excited. He gets like, I got to get one in. He dives in. That's where he lands. Jose's at his best counter punching. You've got different mixture of vibes and emotions in the arena. It could be close. It could be competitive. It could be the kind of fight that they end up saying is a split decision one way or the other. So I agree with that take. I actually am thinking it's going to be a lower output fight than people are imagining.
Yep.
Yes, same here. But that being said, maybe it's the price. Even though I agree with that analysis, I'm not even attracted to like getting cheeky with with a total here or anything. Those seem kind of priced out for me either. So, not sure where I'm rushing to bet this fight, to be honest. But yeah, I think we're all roughly on that same analysis inside.
Well, no, Paul, what are you on?
Same. Nothing to really add. We're all kind of agreeing here. So we're either going to
look
like
good.
geniuses.
I know. I'm jumping off the boat somewhere.
Me and Cody agree on things a lot, and it's just like I was like, all right, somebody's gonna stir the pot a little bit. Through 3 fights here, I'm like, are we running into a train here, or is like the market just are other people outside of our little circle keeping these things up? But I agree with most of I don't know. I just don't see Zahabi outpointing Jose Aldo. I think he's going to eat those leg kicks, and it's like what you really need to do is the standing cage control that we saw Mario Bautista be able to initiate. I just haven't seen that from Zahabi, and like people may say like, well, Aldo's old, and in fight years he definitely is a lot older, but it's like he's only 1 year older than Zahabi at this stage in his career. They both fought Pedro Munoz. They both edged out Pedro Munoz on significant strikes, but Aldo a little bit more so. So that's kind of my barometer for how this one shakes out as well.
Yeah, a little bit more so, especially when you consider that strike metrics, the stat metric or fight metric stats, they don't count leg checks, and that's like one of the most leg check fights. Aldo is one of the most leg checking fighters, so the stats are really skewed with certain guys like that as well. But that's a great point. Great point there, Paul.
There's a reason you come to the Dogger Pass podcast for your UFC picks, just like there's a reason why Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. For over 35 years, Morgan & Morgan has been fighting for the people just like you and I. They have over 100 offices and more than 1,000 lawyers nationwide. When hiring Morgan & Morgan, it's like hiring an army that's got your back. If you're injured by the negligence of another, you deserve to be paid. When you hire the wrong law firm, you might be beat before you start. All law firms are not the same. If you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/doggerpass or dial pound law, pound 529 from your cell phone. That's FOR, thepeople.com/doggerpass or pound law, pound 529 from your cell. This is a paid advertisement.
And yeah, if we are going to have any disagreement, guys, on a main card fight, I don't think it's going to be the opener, which we'll get to, but it's got to be this fight if we're going to have some. We'll see. I'm not sure. We've got Natalia Silva open as a moderate favorite. Money still keeps coming in on her. She is now minus 255 as your favorite with a comeback on the former champ of the division that's being defended at the top of the card. Alexa Grasso, comeback on her plus 215. Of course, we've got a 2.5 round total with the over coming in at minus 415. Another chalky over even more than before with the under 2.5 rounds at plus 315. I'll just try to be quick with this one. I'm a big Grasso fan, but again, I think it was more moments over minutes and processes than anything as far as her success with Shevchenko. We talked about Belal being a great game planner. Again, I love Grasso in that camp, but we've seen some of the worst title performances, whether it was her last one, what was her name? Aldana's last, her last and only one, I guess. And I'm a big Diego Lopez fan, but, he kind of looked a bit lost out there, granted going against a pound for pound great. Point is, I not the most confident in their camp for game planning. And I think Natalia Silva's kicking activity, the fact she's going to have the big cage to kind of skirt around the outside, and those left-sided kicks, man, and that kind of wrestle boxing archetype that Grasso has, I think that's going to be live. And if it does go to grappling, I think that Natalia Silva's the better wrestler, and it's probably even, Grasso's a really good submission grappler, but it's dictating terms she struggles with there. So yeah, I wanted every reason to pick Grasso, maybe throw her in like a round robin. I like playing those guys, but I feel like this is a Natalia Silva decision here. I hope you guys can talk me out of it and have some disagreement here. Mike, any disagreement with me on this one?
I got to be honest with you, man. I went into this when I first saw this fight was lined up. I was like, how is Grasso the underdog here? Like, this is insane to me. And then obviously you have to do your due diligence, right? And when I started breaking this fight down, the two things I looked at right out of the gate was the striking styles. And if you look at Alexa Grasso, she's very traditional, boxing, very heavy on that lead leg. She's got that Mexican style where she likes to come forward. She likes to hunt you down. Then on the flip side, the one style that gives that style the worst problems is the Cuban boxing style. And the Cuban boxing style, it doesn't have to be boxing, but it's just the Cuban style. And they are retreaters. They retreat. They utilize the real estate of the ring or the cage. They're riding the warning track. They move laterally. They're always switching, and they never give you time to really put a beat on them. So when I look at Alexa Grasso, I'm like, well, how does she nullify that? Can she catch a kick and maybe drop her? Yes. Can she find her within 15 minutes? Yes, like you just said, moments over minutes. But I find it hard because you have to find her. Like, you're going to have to eventually find her, and it's not going to be just walking her down and, cutting the cage off. If this was a 5-round fight and this was in the Apex Center in the smaller cage, we'd probably be having a different argument right now, because I might take those moments over minutes, but in a stylistic matchup like this, like, to know that you're already playing behind the 8 ball in this one, because you're the one now who has to hunt her. She's the one where you're kind of playing her style with her, that cat and mouse game. I find it hard. I don't think it's going to be a really fun fight. I really don't. I don't think this is going to be like some barn burner of a fight where you're expecting to see like another Valentina Shevchenko versus Grasso. I think it's going to be a frustrating fight for Grasso. I really, really do. I think that this can be a 30-27, across the board, where she's just, using her speed, utilizing her kicks, staying out of range, utilizing the real estate of the cage. And it's just Grasso getting frustrated, hunting her down and getting marked up. So I wanted to have an argument for this fight. I really, really did. And I like Alexa Grasso. I think she represents Mexico really well. She really does, embrace that Mexican style of warrior and heart. But you can have that warrior and heart style, but you got to have the technique to kind of pin him down. I just don't think she's going to be able to find Silva.
Yeah, I'm not going to say too much more there. I wanted to love, I wanted to bet Grasso here when I was like looking at the matchup originally, and I saw the odds kind of continue to grow. And then watching tape, I was just like, nah, Natalia Silva is just going to stay to the outside, kind of just stay out of range. She has very, very good long range weapons. She's very quick and mobile. It's like we saw in the Jessica Andrade fight. It was just hard to track her down, and when she intercepts you when you come in. Maybe Grasso can trip her up, get this fight to the mat, and kind of test out some things. But I don't plan on betting it. But Natalia Silva will be the pick, ever so reluctantly, because I like betting, CF dot model, all that type of stuff. But at minus 250, it's just like it's a pass for me. But the pick is Silva.
Yeah, we got a hard out, so I won't add too much. I really can't. I mean, I'm on board. We got Natalia Silva. If it was a 5-round fight, if for whatever reason this was headlining a fight night card somewhere, former champion in Grasso versus Natalia Silva, I'd be a lot more inclined to take that CF dot model chance in that we know that Grasso can go 5 rounds and she has the back class, but ultimately in a 3-round affair, Natalia Silva a little bit sharper with her striking, stay to the outside. If Grasso rushes in, makes it a takedown. If not, just play the matador, move around laterally, land those jabs, land those leg kicks, out pointer and win. So I got Natalia Silva as well.
Fantastic. And again, appreciate you guys sticking with us. Again, we had a little bit of a front heavy card with both the way the card's formatted and with the passing of the torch, so to speak. So we're going to kind of speed break down through the rest of these with the hard out in play. Of course, we got Benoît Saint-Denis still on the card at a minus 900 favorite, no longer facing Yoel Alvarez. Instead, in steps Canada's Kyle Prepolec, come back on him plus 600. Totals are 1.5 over plus 165, under 1.5, minus 205. Personally, I'm not liking anything on the lines here. If you guys want more from me on this fight, check out my Southpaw report that I do for the pay-per-views over at Home of Fight. This will be on there. Of course, this is another Southpaw versus Southpaw matchup. Prepolec actually has never fought a UFC level Southpaw, so I'm going to dig deeper in his regional tape study to see what I come out with, see if there's any check right hooks that I called for Dustin Poirier to beat BSD. Of course, BSD is 0-1 against UFC level lefties against Poirier. That was a shot that I kind of saw on tape that he'd be open for. Not sure I'll see anything to that extent for Prepolec here. So obviously the pick will be BSD. Mike, anything on this one?
No. I mean, this seems like a situation where this Prepolec, I believe, was in the UFC in the past. He was like 0-2, when he was here. And I think this is just a situation where they're in Canada. They need a guy to step in. He's there. They bring him back. Listen, BSD, he's been knocked down. He's been finishing his last 2 fights. We know he's got the scar tissue buildup. He's been in wars for the amount of time that he's been here. But to me, this is kind of a BSD fight all day. But it's just untouchable on the line. But you got to go with BSD.
I think Cody brought it up on our other show, Bookie Beatdown. The over 1.5 is plus money here. Prepolec's never been finished in his career. He's been in the UFC. He's went to the decision against some pretty decent level fighters. And then you factor in the fact that like Benoît Saint-Denis needs to get back on track here. I wouldn't be surprised to see him be a little bit more, reserved. He's not going to run himself into any shots and get himself finished. Like he's had a rough go the last couple of fights. I think the best bet is the over 1.5. Plus 165 was what it's listed at. I believe it got moved a little bit earlier on to plus 145, but plus money over 1.5 in this fight. That's where my money will go.
Awesome.
Oh, you're muted, Cody.
Yeah, sorry. He's never been knocked out. He's been submitted, but not in over 10 years. The 2 guys that subbed him were Jason Fisher and Kevin Lee, who are both exceptional submission grapplers. And again, it's 10 years ago. So as Paul mentioned, there's no real angle that you can get here on a Benoît Saint-Denis money line. So we're attacking that over 1.5 round. I will say, Jared, if you could just bring up the graphic real quick. If I was ever in a bar fight, I want Benoît Saint-Denis to have my back. If I was in a prison fight, I'm taking Kyle Prepolec because the other inmates would have no interest in me, and they're gonna mob up this guy. So like, he's
yes.
Props for him for jumping back in here. 35 years of age, he stays in real good shape. This is going to be a tough match for him. I could see him getting finished, but it would be after you really break him down, which should come at the over 1.5. So that's the way I'm attacking this one. And as Paul alluded to, it's plus money. So on a betting standpoint, a lot better than trying to take a minus 900, minus 1,000. Yesterday was minus 1,200 for Benoît Saint-Denis.
Cody is a guy who used to tour in a band. I can tell you, we had a Kyle Prepolec in our band, so to speak. They always come in handy when you need someone to throw to the wolves, man. I'll just say that. I just want to touch on these at least two fights before we speed, and we have the hard out coming out here. I just feel like Jessica Andrade, who's an underdog to Jasmine Jasudavicius, and Mike Malott, who's a favorite to Charles Radtke. If you guys had any opinions on those fights, I am leaning toward the favorites on both, but I'm not rushing to the betting line to the betting window to bet either of them. Do you guys have any opinions on either of those two fights, Mike?
I think we still have an hour for
No.
what.
Oh, still have an hour? Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize.
So what fight are we on, the Malott fight?
Well, let's jump over to Malott then. Yeah, we'll go Malott minus 175 and Charles Radtke plus 150. These guys are going to be leading into the pay-per-view. Apologies, guys. Got confused in the hard out time. The totals for this one's a 1.5 rounds. Expecting action here. Over minus 160 though. Under 1.5 rounds plus 130. Like I kind of tipped my cap, I guess. I'll just go off of that. It's not always as simple as, well, Mike Malott or fighter A has more ways to win than fighter B. It's not always about that. Charles Radtke's got a wicked left hook that could certainly detonate Mike Malott, who we've seen detonated. Granted, it was at weight classes that I don't know how he made back in the day to fight Hakeem Dawodu at like 145 pounds. Mike Malott looks like a healthy boy playing some college hockey there at 170 pounds. I don't know why I had to make him Boston there. He's clearly Canadian. But yeah, I don't know. What's up?
His brother plays in the NHL.
That was it. There it is. That's where the hockey thing is. It's not just a racial stereotype toward Canadians. Thank you for bailing me out there, Cody. But I do like Malott here. Mike, are you going to go with a fellow Mike, or are you going to go with America, Radtke?
Yeah, every time I break down a Mike Malott fight, I always go back to the nightmare. It's like, and it's hard because my process is I try not to go back more than three fights. After that, it's like there's so many things that can change in the camps and stuff like that. But when you see that he was Neil Magny, and you're like, my God, he got rough. Neil Magny. Not Neil Magny to a decision. Neil Magny finished him. Like, you don't see that often. I mean, you're better off seeing a pot of gold come down when Neil Magny's finishing somebody. So you're always looking at that and you're like, ugh, but at the end of the day, he is a talented kid. He is a talented kid. And the way I'm looking at this fight, I just think it's like chaos on the side of Radtke to having the ability to control the chaos. Like, Malott's going to have to really control that chaos. He's going to have to tame that tiger. When you look at, the fight with Prates, Radtke got hit with a liver shot. He went down. He looked good against Semmelsberger for the short time that fight happened. But I just think when you're looking, when you're doing the check marks and you're doing the, checking the boxes, I just think Mike Malott checks more boxes from a technical standpoint. So if he could keep his head, if he can kind of tame that tiger, play Matador a little bit, I think he should be fine in front of his home crowd. I think he wants to also, get that taste out of his mouth from, being magnied and stuff like that in front of his home people. So I do like him. I don't know how active this fight's going to be. This fight can be anywhere from a barn burner to kind of just strategic and boring. But I am leaning towards Mike Malott here.
Same here. I'm just maybe a little bit Canadian biased. Met him in Vegas. Seemed like a really nice fella. So don't really want to pick against him. The market completely disagrees. I was watching his interview just quickly. I'll just mention this. Just like watching his interview a little bit earlier today. I guess there's, Radtke's trying to turn this into like, 51st state, everything like that, trying to build it up. And Mike's just like, I think he's in the right mindset at the very least heading into this. He's just like, I think he's going to come at me really, really hard. And it's going to be like the bull and the matador. I think he can do that type of style. And I think grappling has gotten him into some trouble. Could he get knocked out? Of course. You get 4-ounce gloves on anybody. These things can happen. But Malott, I'm going to end up with money on him because the market keeps making that price shorter. So I'll be going against the line movement this week. Mike Malott is the pick for me.
Yeah, I think Mike Malott, he's going to come in here and he's going to grapple. I'm almost certain of it. I mean, it's up to him for what he's going to do come Saturday. But yeah, we all know about Charlie Radtke is that he wants to press forward. He's got a murderous left hook on him. So why would you want to engage him in that game? All of his fights in the UFC have been mostly, for the most part, against strikers. He's fighting a Matthew Semmelsberger, or he's fighting a Gilbert Urbina, or he's fighting a blood diamond Mike Mathetha, even Carlos Prates. These guys are all striking with him. Although Mike Malott, technically speaking, he's a former provincial kickboxing champion. He's sharp. He throws straight down the middle. He's got a decent left hook on him of his own. The path here is take him down. Now, the Neil Magny fight, right? He hadn't gone the distance in years. It had been a long time. Everybody he's fighting, he's finishing quick. So I think it was an adrenaline dump, it was a cardio dump. All the same, he gasses out against Neil. It's a bad look. His very next fight, they book him against Trevin Giles. Now, keep in mind, against Magny, he went 4 for 6 on takedowns. Gassed himself out over wrestling. His fight with Giles, he had grappled Giles on a Fury one of those Fury Pro grappling tournaments or matches. He had grappled Trevin Giles, took him down and out-grappled him like nothing. And yet fights him in the UFC, and he attempts one takedown attempt on him. So that's him just trying to realize, how do I pace myself? The fight against Magny, I wrestled too hard. The fight against Giles, I conserved too much. What's that happy median? Charles Radtke's 5'9". Mike Malott's 6'1". I understand that Radtke's been fighting mostly tall 6'+ fighters. However, they're all looking to strike him. Once Mike Malott gets to shooting takedowns on him, I think he's going to easily out-grapple him. He's a high-level BJJ black belt. He used to be one of the head coaches over at Team Alpha Male in Sacramento. He gets quality work in, training partners with, he's not working with Jasmine Jasudavicius, but the same system that created her, that same system that got Serious City a week last week, of just being able to mix in that grappling with your striking, fighting a high ring IQ type fight, but also what's the most successful art in mixed martial arts would be wrestling and grappling. And I think he's going to do that to Radtke. Radtke, you'd have to go back all the way to his fight with like Jonathan Piersma to see someone try to out-grapple him. And Piersma has tons of success out-grappling him. Mike Malott, that's not lost on him. It's not lost on his coaches. He's going to put this thing together. I booked him for his like third professional fight. He fought a guy named Alan Wilson, who, God rest his soul, ended up dying a short time after that. But all the same, it's like Mike was then seen as an uber prospect who was going to do great things. He's dealt with whiplash. He's dealt with like a few reoccurring injuries. He's dealt with a few setbacks. But again, as I mentioned with his brother Jeff Malott playing for the LA Kings in the National Hockey League, this is a very athletic and very talented family. They could have done whatever they wanted to. This kid wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer. He could have done all that stuff. He chose to be a fighter. And I think he'll make the proper adjustments. So, yeah, a little bit of it is bias. He's Canadian. I know him. I see him 2-3 times a year. It comes to my Thick Boy Fight Club shows. Like, he's a good guy, but it's a style clash that I've got a 5'9" brawler who's looking to fight him from inside the pocket versus proper Mike, a smart guy that I think will put a good game plan together. People talk about the Neil Magny fight like it's some bum that beat him. Neil Magny's a gatekeeper to the stars, a guy that's perennially been ranked in the top 15 for a decade. So, yeah, you dominate him for 2 rounds and then you lose the third. Is that someone that you could not progress? Could he not work on his cardio? Could he not pace himself a bit better? Like, was it a lack of skills or just one bad moment? I kind of think it's the latter more than the former. And so for that reason, I do give him a little bit of a pass on that one. And I think he'll go out there and take care of business come Saturday. So pick for me is Mike Malott.
Yeah, hopefully people don't think, hey, Mike, hopefully people don't think me and you are going out full Charlie Radtke over here. We're definitely not bringing that energy for what it's worth. But I will say it isn't your Canadian bias, guys, for liking Mike Malott. He just seems like a really likable dude. Like, he looks like he should be playing street hockey with Wayne and Garth, you know? I mean, like, he just looks like a very likable guy. But like you mentioned, he also trains with a team that's really been dialing themselves in. And if you look at their UFC progressions, even with their hiccups, they've been really hitting their stride lately. And of course, that is Jasmine Jasudavicius, who is minus 300 opposite former champion, multi-divisional, contender, Jessica Andrade. Come back on her plus 250. Total set at 2.5 rounds with the over minus 145, the under plus 115, which kind of surprised me, predicting maybe more violence than I am. I'm curious to see where you guys are. Jasmine Jasudavicius was a fighter who made my, along with Aiemann Zahabi, by the way, who didn't quite make my under the radar fighter of the year that I give out over at MMA Junkie. I actually gave it to a guy who still hasn't fought, Steve Mean Machine Garcia. He was set to fight Edson Barbosa, but I feel like the honorable mentions have been doing better. Jasmine Jasudavicius is one of them. She's really, she's always been one to push into the clinch and, make fights ugly. Obviously, we were familiar with the story, of how she got into the sport through dating a wrestler, I believe, right? And her shots has actually, shown improvement. It's not something that, she started with early and got her in. Like, she's showing improvement in all areas. She can still be hit, she's not like a defensive savant, but she is good at having the initiative, and really having that initiative is such a big deal in an aggressive sport like MMA. But even in striking, sometimes just seizing that striking initiative can kind of level things out. Jessica Andrade, she didn't look, I've been a defender of her. I'm that dude who loves betting old Brazilians at plus money. I got a meme that I haven't busted out because I haven't been doing that. It's the girlfriend meme where the girl's getting mad at her boyfriend for checking out somebody. It's usually me looking at a big Brazilian underdog I have no business looking at for big plus numbers. That's my style. Jessica Andrade came up big for me, in fights like against Mackenzie Dern and all that. I got love for her, but I don't know, guys. I'm not quite feeling it here. I'm going to dig a little deeper into this one to see if certain tape changes my mind, although I've actually watched tape just this week on both these fighters. I'm not quite seeing confidence here. I'm leaning toward the favorite Jasudavicius. Can you guys give me some devil's advocate here, or are you guys on the same side as me, Mike?
Yeah, so when I look at Jessica Andrade, she's, very cut and dry. I mean, she's very north and south. She's got that Joe Frazier, Mike Tyson style. She's looking to hunt you down, looking to take off your head. And she's been around for a while. Like a lot of people, if you don't know, obviously you know the name Andrade, you're probably like, oh my God, she's got to be like 39. She's only 33 years old, but she's been through it. She's fought the top of the heap. She's been in the UFC for a long time. She's been involved in this game for a very, very long time. So she has been through it. She isn't an older 33-year-old. She still has it though. The power's the last thing to go. And that's the one thing I think when you're looking at that over and under, you're like, my God, like, why is it like, I'm not predicting violence here. You got to remember, they also got to weigh in the factor of the danger zone of the power of Jessica Andrade and what she can do if she does land hands on you. But I just think it's a style. The people that beat Jessica Andrade are the people that are super athletic, a la Natalia Silva, that they can move around the cage. You can kind of lose her in translation and stuff like that. And people that kind of take away that range from her and kind of can ground her, just smother her and just take her away, take her out of that danger zone. And I think that's what Jasmine does. Yes, she's not a good striker. I wouldn't say she's not a good striker. She's not a great striker. Okay, so she can be had there. But somebody like Natalia Silva, somebody who's very athletic, who moves around a lot, who's thrown these landmines out, seeing what you're going to step on and trying to tag you from the outside. Those are the people that really concern me with Jasmine Jasudavicius. But with somebody like Andrade, who's going to kind of come forward and she's going to try to cause melee and cause havoc on you, that kind of plays into the white gloves of Jasmine. Come towards me, come to me, let me get a hold of you and let me take you down and let me use my control grappling on you. Let me get top position, heavy hips, get a nice center of gravity on top of you and let me control you that way. So I just think it's going to be a controlled thing. I think when she needs the takedowns, they're going to be there. She may have trouble in the beginning. She may be a little tentative. She might want to back off and maybe feel the power a little bit and see what Andrade has given her. But eventually, as the minutes tick on, after she starts getting into the rhythmic, tones of the fight, the colors of the fight, I think she's going to ground her, and it's going to be a control time thing. I don't see this fight going inside the distance. So that over and under is kind of looking, pretty valuable to me at this point. But I do like JJ to win this fight. I could see Andrade winning a round, having a big moment in the fight in a close round. But at the end of the day, I think Jasmine collects herself, takes the fight to the ground, and goes to what she knows. And that's the most important thing. Jasmine knows what she's good at. There's a lot of fighters out there that they smell that knockout. They get that first knockout, almost like a Gilbert Burns, and they kind of leave what got them to the dance. She knows what got her here. She's going to utilize that, and she's going to either live or die with it. And I think that's going to be enough to allow her to live here.
Yeah, Jazz is huge at 125 pounds. Some would say weight bully. I'm not going to say it because we live in the same country. I don't want to run into her on the streets and get myself in trouble. But she's good at what she does. She gets to hold people. She holds them down. And the chin has held up for her. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jessica have some moments, particularly early. But a lot of the same things that she's just going to move forward. Eventually, Jazz is going to get a hold of her, get on top of her. And where Mike is talking about overs, like I actually kind of think Jazz by sub plus 300. Haven't bet it, but I've been circling it. May see that play out. May make my card by the end of the week. I don't think there's really much value at minus 300 on the money line at this point, but that's where I'm at with this matchup this week. Cody.
Yeah, I would double down. Same thing as Paul's saying. I just feel like Jasmine's going to, first round will be competitive. Second round, maybe a little bit less or so. But at some point, Jasmine getting her down, spending top control time, accruing some ground and pound, it's going to open up the neck. You've seen with Jessica Andrade, say her fight with Valentina Shevchenko, taken down 7 times, but she just gets dummied by those elbows from on top. You go to her fight with Erin Blanchfield. The first round, Blanchfield shoots no takedowns. Second round, as soon as she shoots, she's on her back. She's got the choke. Her fight with Tatiana Suarez shoots a few times. Eventually, Andrade gives up the neck. If you want to stand and bang with her, she's female John Lineker. She's going to be thrown from the hip. She's got murderous hooks. As Mike said, there's nothing, it's pretty cut and paste. You know what you're going to get out of her, but she's going to pressure forward. She's going to throw on you. If you can mix in the takedowns, that's where you're going to really start to grind. She struggles specifically against the best wrestlers and grapplers of the division, and Jazz is big for the weight class. When you look at Jasmine Jasudavicius, she's been taking down her last number of opponents. But go back to her last loss against Tracy Cortez. Tracy Cortez is like 4 inches taller than Jessica Andrade, comes from a wrestling background, and is a far better wrestler all around. The fact that she's able to take down Tracy twice, she will take Andrade down. Now, Andrade, back in 2023, she's going through a divorce. So she needs that money because her significant other's coming for that money. So she fought 5 times in 2023. And last year, she's fought twice. She looked burnt out. Like, she's still only 33. She's 2 years younger than Jazz, but she's just got a lot of fights against all the best fighters in the division. Girl fought Raquel Pennington and dumped her on her head way back when at 135. At some point, it's like your body starts to slow down and you start to accept that a loss isn't the end of the world. You're getting paid. You're entertaining a crowd. You get to travel the world. What's a loss? Well, for Jasmine, she's 35 years old. She needs to beat a former champion Andrade, and this catapults her into title contention. She knows that it's not lost on her. You'll get a good version of her versus a version of Andrade that's looking to throw a few hooks and then start to slow down and then start to tire. But as Paul mentioned, that submission prop at plus 300, I actually think that comes to fruition as well.
I like that too, because part of me, we can use Davison Figueiredo versus Corey Sandhagen as an analog, right? Another former Brazilian champ, big hitter, power's last thing to go. They've had success up of a division, sure. Very good analog there. However, like Figueiredo, Andrade is not beyond having weird performances, whether it be the personal issues that props Cody mentioning that's a real important factor, as well as the wear and tear. You get more inconsistent. She's you can kind of see it on her body, her face, her performances. There is wear there. Like I'm picking up what Cody's putting down, and to give more credence perhaps to a submission possibility is I just see ground and pound here from Jasudavicius. That's been one of her main areas where I see her strongest in a fight. And no matter who she's fighting. But for this fight, it could be one of those things where, you guys mentioned her size, and, she's once those tall fighters get on top of you. Remember Ricky Glenn? He wasn't, he's not even like the most imposing name, but that guy had some violent ground and pound, wasn't the most athletic guy, but he was a lot longer than dudes, especially back when he was fighting at 145, back in those days. And Jasudavicius kind of has that advantage, especially over the smaller frame Andrade. And if she's not going to finish her with the ground and pound, well, that ground and pound's either going to encourage a decision to win or for her to turn and give that back and perhaps Paul Shag cash in a submission prop at the end of the night.
Yeah, Ricky Glenn, that was almost the first death I've ever seen in the UFC, was him, Gavin Tucker. Like, why didn't they stop it? I couldn't tell you. But it's like, yeah, you have a lot of leverage. So, when you lift your arm back or you lift this elbow back, it's coming from just like a further range of motion. So, I can pick up what you're putting down. I think we're on the same page there. We got to find at least one fight by the end of this that we're just not on the same page with, because so far this is either going to be the most profitable, easy money we've ever had, or it's like we're falling into this mush trap.
There's no way we all agree on the next one. There's no way.
I was going to say,
this week.
There's no way. I may just say, just may flip the script if the three of you guys and just take the other guy for the lulz, just to change the vibe.
Well, we've got a coin flip fighter, right? I mean, we should literally rename him Ewan Coin Flip Cutelaba, right? Coming in at minus 112. Probably, I can't imagine he opened anywhere too far from that number. And the comeback, if you want to call it that, at these pick'em prices, Modestas Bukauskas, minus 108. This one is set at a 1.5 total, with the over at minus 140, under at plus 110, 1.5 rounds, which is, I'm not going to lie, plus money under is always interesting with a wild man like Cutelaba. I will be doing the normal thing like I do with Cutelaba, even though he tends to train a lot. Not as much lately, I believe, in my backyard here of Extreme Couture. You guys know me. I don't let that bias bleed in as much as I can. I pick against XC guys, and I definitely pick against Cutelaba a lot. I'm going to pick against him here, albeit reluctantly, but the reason why I picked against Bukauskas, and it's hard to take away too much. I mean, that cicada guy he crumbled like a cicada bug, right? I mean, it's hard to put too much weight into that. But if you've been following Modestas, he has shown to overcome adversity. He's been around, he's paid some dues, and he's shown some improvements. So that's enough for me to pick him here. Mike, what do you got for this mad fight here?
It's so crazy because Ian Cutelaba is a guy like where he's got the tools to win this fight. Like you just don't know what he's going to do. This is a guy who in some fights he has Cody Garbrandt disease where it's like he gets hit, he has to get it back. We've seen him questionable. I don't know if that was a rope-a-dope, but when he tried to do that rope-a-dope and they stopped the fight, like he does some really questionable things when he's fighting. But when he really imposes his wrestling, you're like, wow, his cardio even looks better. It's not supposed to happen. Like your cardio is not supposed to be better when you're imposing that much wrestling. And you got to wonder, like, is that the game plan? Is he going to come? He's going to come in with, or is he going to be a little bit more strategic? Is he going to try to, stand and bang with Bukauskas when Bukauskas really isn't a banger? But I just look at this fight. I think I trust Bukauskas a little bit more from a technical standpoint. I think he's more technical. I think he's more patient. I think there's something to be said about Ian Cutelaba. He can be go into with a certain game plan that he's going to do a certain thing, but the minute he gets his beard touched, he's got to get it back. He's a killer be killed fighter, and sometimes that's great, especially if you're playing certain things like DraftKings. You're looking for inside the distance props and stuff like that. That's great, but I always go in with the philosophy. Since I was a kid, my grandfather always told me, you always take the boxer over the puncher. You know what I mean? And I just think Ian Cutelaba is more of the brawler here. Bukauskas is more of the technical guy. I got to go with Bukauskas, but like I said, I got no heavy lean on this, but I'm taking the guy with a little bit more patience, a little bit more resolve and calm. And I think, just a little bit more technical ability all the way around.
Yeah, Cutelaba usually only has 5 minutes of gas. Against Ivan Erslan, he had about 9 minutes of gas. And that was enough. Well, he was holding on for dear life in round 3. It was not pretty by any stretch of the imagination. My original pick was actually going to be Modestas Bukauskas. Cody and I broke down the card on Tuesday night, and he kind of flipped me on it. It's just like going through, looking back at some old fights. Like Tyson Page are not exactly some sort of top end wrestler by any stretch of the imagination. Went 2 of 3 on takedowns, 2 of 2 in round 1. Maybe Cutelaba's turning a corner here. The wrestling, I think, will at least be there early. It really comes down to, does Bukauskas survive? Do they get to round 3? Because like all bets are off when you get to round 3. The pick will be Cutelaba for me, but probably a fight that like I'd prefer to bet from a live betting perspective. Like you'll see when Cutelaba's gas starts falling apart, and if Modestas is still around, he could definitely take over late. But Cutelaba, for the purposes of the show, will be the pick for me.
Yeah, I got Cutelaba as well, and this is the frustrating thing about breaking down fighters, is that Mike's 100% right. When you look at it, Modestas is the better fighter. Technically, he's a better striker. He's able to get better gas tank. He's got better speed. He's got better footwork. I think that he could win. But the facts is, he's got 6 pro losses. He's been finishing 5 of them. 4 of them by knockout or TKO. You've seen less punchers knock this guy out. He's 6'3", but he's got a tall man defense where he tends to keep his chin upright. As far as his own offense goes, he likes that jab, he likes that low kick, he likes to stay on the outside. So against someone that wants to have a sparring type fight with you, that wants to go tit for tat, that wants to play that game, he's going to be very effective. But Cutelaba's not that guy. Like, he's not looking to have a sparring session with you. He's going to bum rush you. If he comes forward and he just starts swinging caution to the wind, I feel like there's a good chance that he could clip Modestas. If he doesn't just outright clip Modestas and knock him out, I think he relies on that wrestling. Former European Sambo champion, he can mix in those takedowns. You've seen him at his best take down, a big, strong guy like Dustin Jacoby down 7 times. Gas tank has always been an issue, but I feel like he's starting to find that balance. Dan might be able to elaborate on this. I know he's spent a lot of time at Extreme Couture. Seems like now he's spending a lot more time in Moldova. So I'm not really sure, why the improvements are coming or what's led to this new sense of fighting a little more mature. But I would love to see a guy like Cutelaba end up in a gym like TriStar for no other reason than if someone could give him a real game plan. He's got all the skills. If he paced himself, he can grapple. He's got power. He can strike. He's got more of the frame of a middleweight than a real light heavyweight as far as I'm concerned, but he's been fighting some of the biggest light heavyweights in the division for quite some time now. He fought Ankalaev twice. He fought Khalil Roundtree, smashed Khalil Roundtree. So like there's definitely something there for Ian Cutelaba, but similar to a Jessica Andrade or similar to other fighters that we've broken down, they're not super consistent. Them at their best a absolute problem for most of the division. Them at their worst, they're just going through this lull or going through these motions. It's a dog or pass type fight for me personally. There's slight dog money on Cutelaba. I think his ability to outright knock out Modestas Bukauskas, or his ability to just take this fight down and control him. As Paul mentioned, if we can get 9 minutes of cardio, that's up 2 rounds, then run away or get beat up in the third. But he's tough enough that I don't think Modestas is going to put him out, especially not if it's, hey, just last 2 more minutes and you win this fight. You know, this guy's pretty hard-nosed, durable enough. A good submission game might be able to submit him, but does Modestas have that good of a submission game? There's questions that still need to be answered. So for me, it's Cutelaba.
In Love and Cutelaba fights, asking for 9 minutes is asking a lot, I feel like. But 7.5.
We're going to be in the chat for this fight, boys. We'll be chatting it up.
Dude, speaking of asking a lot, Cody, you asked, why the improvements came. That's a great point, because I was going to say, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like, 13, 14 fights in, Cutelaba's sitting here trying to decide, and he's like, I'm going to go back to my Moldovan Sambo roots, right? Which is weird. It's like you were just at a wrestling/cage wrestling specialty gym in Extreme Couture. He had Eric Nixick working with him. But I'm going to quote my guy Eric Nixick here to answer Cody's question. As far as why, for him or any pro fighters, as Eric would say, these are pro fighters. I'm lucky if I can get him to shit in the toilet. So that we just leave it at that for that, but especially for a wild man like Aiemann Cutelaba. So anything more on that one? Or we go to the next one, guys?
Yeah, on to the next.
All right, next fight. Navajo Sterling. Minus 310. I don't know why I'm doing Australian. I think he's like from New Zealand. Even Urslan, we just talked about him, plus 260 on that comeback. Similar spread here. We got another 1.5 total with the over minus 165 and the under plus 135. I don't disagree with the spread, the odds, who's favored, or even the total spread, given that we were able to see Urslan. It felt like on a semi-short notice there come in and still perform fairly well. That being said, one thing outside of just outright consistency that Aiemann Cutelaba doesn't have is body work. And that was one of the things that really stood out to me from Sterling's Contender Series debut. And then he showed more of it, I believe, in his next fight there against Tokos. And I think that the body work is going to make a difference as far as the staying power. Not saying, bet the under or anything at a 1.5, but, I could see like a round 2 or 3 finish from Sterling here. I'm not rushing to bet this fight. Another one. I'm sorry to repeat that. Sorry if it sounds like I'm copping out here, just giving my honest opinion on these ones. I usually like to bet the more proven products, but at the same time, even though it's only his junior/sophomore performance, I think I can semi-confidently pick Sterling here. What do you got, Mike?
Yeah, this is where I usually make my money on these prospects like this. When you get a guy like Navajo Sterling coming in 6-0, very green, not much about him. The level of competition is kind of up in the air, and you're looking at the UFC saying, what are they doing here? Like, what are they trying to do with this kid? And sometimes they fail, and sometimes they do what they do, like certain fighters, and they give them exactly what they need until they graduate to a certain level. It didn't take me long to see that they really made this fight really well for Sterling. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at Navajo Sterling, obviously we all know he's a striker. That's what he's good at. He's dynamic. He goes to the body really well. He switches it up body head. And the one thing, the philosophy that I always hold, you don't strike with a striker, you don't punch with a puncher. And the one thing with Urslan is that he does not move. You cannot stand in front of someone like Sterling. You have to use angles. You got to give him different looks. You got to throw him off his rhythm. You got to make him reset. If you're just going to stand in front of him, you're an open target. And I think the UFC sees that. I think the UFC sees, all right, well, this is a guy who does have power. If he does step into the pocket and they get into an exchange, he does have the power to maybe clip him or do something. But at the end of the day, he's going to stand in front of you for 15 minutes. He's going to be not a moving target. He's not someone you got to pin down or track down. You're going to kind of be able to set these landmines right in front of him and see what opens up and then tee away from there. So I think they made this fight really well for him. And like I said, if you look at Urslan's style, he's going to stand right in front of Sterling, and it's just going to be up to him to how active he's going to be. Is he going to pull the trigger? And if the finish is going to come, I think he does have a really good opportunity to finish this one inside the distance, because I've seen no evidence of Urslan using any kind of lateral movement or anything. He's very, very north-south, so he's going to be there to be hit.
Yeah, just tagging along with what Mike just said there. Sterling, I was kind of, I went back and watched the fight against Tokos, and even though he didn't get the finish, and he was a minus 1,000 favorite in that fight, so it's like, I'm sure a lot of the anger that you see on like social media and stuff is people who lost their inside the distance or, Sterling by KO types of props and stuff like that. But there's a lot to like in terms of going the full distance against a veteran like that. And he's only, 27, 28 years old. Much longer. Showed that he can go 15 minutes, and he put up more volume as the fight wore on. Sterling's the pick for me. Sterling by KO. It's like plus money in some spots. I don't mind that.
Yeah, I got Sterling as well. I mean, I think there's a lot of feedback from his last fight, as Paul alluded to. It's like, oh, people are complaining about it, but it was his 6th pro fight. Like, he's got very little experience, and you're going to see this guy continuously get better performance to performance because, again, he's getting more mature. He's accruing real cage time. You've now seen him go a full 15 minutes. You'll see him make those adjustments. City Kickboxing, specifically their head coach, Eugene Berriman, this is the mold of fighter that he does incredibly well with. When you look at Israel Adesanya, he's a striker, he's long, and how do you give this guy the skills to be a world champion? Well, he does just that. Carlos Ulberg comes in with basically the exact same background. He's big, he's long, he's tall, he's one-dimensional kickboxer. How can we give him the skills to be a real contender? And he is a real contender right now. Navo Sterling's the exact same thing. He's 6'4" with a 78-inch reach. Like, he is big, he's long, he's an excellent striker. The difference is this kid's young. Izzy didn't look like a world beater when he first debuted in the UFC. Ulberg gassed out against Kendi Njoku when he debuted in the UFC. You got to build these guys along. And for Navo Sterling, I mean, he's got an excellent camp. He's got excellent training partners. But that base, that length, that kickboxing pedigree, that's been a style that the gym has specifically been very, very successful with. So I think this is another solid prospect coming out of the gym that should give a good account of himself. His last time he had to fight the full 15, fair. Tuco Tokos is not exactly the most durable guy going, so I don't know for sure that he knocks out Ivan Urslan. But like Mike said, Ivan likes to stay in the pocket. He fought Ian Cutelaba standing directly in front of him. Ian is going to meet you right in the middle. There's no range game. There's no distance. There's no timing. It's, hey, let's fight. Whereas Navajo can use his footwork. He can move laterally. He can cause you to chase him and counter you off that, or he can move forward and keep you at the edge of his long-range weaponry. So I think he gets the job done. I think he looks infinitely better than he did the last time. This might not be the easiest fight in the first 5 minutes, but the longer it goes, I think Sterling's going to start to piece him up.
All right, I'm going to jump over to the next fight on that one. We got Marc-Andre Barrio, minus 145. Bruno Silva, plus 125. Totals at 1.5 rounds. Over, minus 165. The under, plus 135. Man, I don't want to sound like a cop-out here, but this one, I think I have good reason not being confident because for me, it's like, who is less washed? And I feel like I've been a little long-winded on front end of these. So, Mike, I'm going to shoot straight over to you. I got Marc-Andre Barrio, not confident in this one. Who do you have, man?
I mean, what are we doing here with this? Really? What are we doing? I mean, I got respect for Marc-Andre Barrio, but it's like, I think between the two of them, they got finished 7 times. This guy, Bruno Silva, 6 of his last 7 he lost. I mean, I can see a pink slip going to both these guys, whoever wins or loses, to be honest with you. But I just feel like when I look at this is no confidence. This is basically, for me to premise my pick on this, it's pretty sad, but I feel like Marc-Andre Barrio still wants to be there. I feel like Bruno Silva packed it in a while ago. Like, I just don't feel like he wants to be there. Marc-Andre Barrio, he's got something to fight for at least. He's in Canada. He's, when he goes in there, whether he's washed or not, he's going to give you his best effort. He's just not going to fold. And I question that about Bruno Silva. I don't know how much he really truly wants to be in there anymore. I can't say that for him for a while now. So for that reason, I got to land on Marc-Andre Barrio. But like I said, both of these guys, I mean, you could touch their beard once and they can go down. So who really knows? But I'm just going on the premise that, like, I just feel like he wants to be there. He really wants to be there, where the other guy in Bruno Silva he kind of checked out a while ago.
Yeah, of all Canadians on the card, the one that will probably get the most pop in this section of Canada is Marc-Andre Barrio. Quebec fighter, French-Canadian fella. I mean, Bruno Silva, I guess his last great performance, the one win in his last 7 fights, is against Brad Tavares. Knocking out Brad Tavares is dangerous. It's like, that's why this fight is complete chaos. Very, very dangerous. And like going back watching Marc-Andre Barrio take on Dustin Stoltzfus, he was, getting grappled for quite a bit of that first round. And then he just got up and just started winging. if that happens again, he's getting his head knocked off. But I'm gonna side with Marc-Andre Barriault to maybe want it a little bit more. Whether his chin holds up or not, I have no idea. This fight is a car crash, but Barriault's still, fully invested. And Cody brought up some stuff about the mental side for Bruno Silva that he released not that long ago. That makes me a little bit more confident in Marc-Andre Barriault here.
Yeah, so Bruno, after his last fight, disclosed that he's been dealing with like crippling anxiety and depression, and essentially that the anxiety will kick in during the fight. And usually after the first round is when the anxiety kicks in, and it leaves him feeling drained and tired and lethargic and just not really wanting to fight. He's got a 4-6 record in the UFC. Those 4 wins are all by knockout, 3 of them in the first round. It's after the first round is when the anxiety kicks in. So like Madlad said, and I agree 100%. When I watch this guy, it's like he just really seems like he's just treading water, just going through the motions, doesn't care to be there. Chris Weidman's doubling him up in significant strikes. So what exactly are you doing? But then at the same time, you can realize that he's dealing with a personal problem. So has he had enough time off? Has he been able to address it? He said he's talked to psychiatrists. He says he's talked to doctors. He's changed his lifestyle. He's doing meditation and yoga. And yet after the first round, this immense amount of pressure just tends to weigh him down. So I think it's a good live betting spot. If Marc-Andre Barriault is going to lose, he's going to get knocked down in the first round. If this thing gets out of the first round, Barriault's big on volume. He's big on pressure. He's got a decent gas tank. Paul mentioned he's a big fan favorite over in Quebec. He'll have a large crowd push. What happened? If you're talking to Barriault, you're his coach, you're his manager, you're his girlfriend, whatever, you'd be like, what went wrong in that last fight, Mark? He'd be like, oh, man, I was brawling with Stolfus. Got caught. It's like, oh, well, what went wrong in the fight before that with Joe Pyfer? It's like, yeah, I was just brawling in the pocket with him. It's like, then stop fucking doing it, man. What else do you want to know? Stop brawling these guys in the pocket. Take your time. Let them throw first and then counter on it. Counter a 2, counter a 3. You swarm them with that volume, and I think Barriault should be able to do that. So he's not a very smart guy. You can see that from him just electing to fight a bad game plan in his last 2 fights. But also he was dating Jade Mason Wong, babe, and broke up with her apparently. So like he's not the smartest guy going, but he does have a fan-friendly style. People keep saying he's washed. That's fine. It's still going to take a big shot to land to put him out. And with Bruno just feels like, again, I can't trust a guy that's been, very vocal about the fact that he doesn't want to be there half the time and his brain's playing tricks on him. And the Alex Pereira fight changed his life. If Alex Pereira hit me 108 significant times to the head, it would change my life too. So I can't fault him, but he's not someone I can put money on.
Oliver McCall.
Oliver McCall, he's talking to Jesus in there. He's bawling his eyes out. And it's like, why are we allowing this guy to fight right now? But yeah, man, 100%. It's like, it's getting to that level. It's crazy.
And I don't know if this helps sway your pick anymore, but I will add a southpaw stat. I've been trying to dribble those in for you guys when I can here. Bruno Silva, of course, he lists himself as an orthodox fighter, but he fights southpaw like 90% of the time. And Barriault, he is technically 1-2 against UFC level lefties. But if you look at the losses, they were split decisions to guys like Krzysztof Jotko and Chris Curtis, not finished in those fights, usually comports himself, fairly decently, despite the 1-2 record there. So some food for thought, not that should, or I expect it to sway anybody or make them feel stronger about this fight, their pick. But yeah, you guys nailed some great things and great context there on the Bruno Silva. As a guy who backed Blindado a lot, that actually explains a lot,
Big time.
All right, let's push on to the next fight here. We've got Daniel Santos stepping in and getting, some respect. It's a close line. It's plus 101 underdog for his side. But if you want the originally scheduled fighter for this card, Jung Young Lee, he's minus 121. Price tag is your favorite. Totals 2.5 rounds for this one, gentlemen, with the over at plus 110, under 2.5, minus 140. So obviously much more swinging in the direction of violence, at least so the numbers would indicate. This one is another difficult one to get a beat on. Mike was saying about a fight earlier where I believe it was with Malott Radtke, where it could be a barn burner, but it could very easily be a decision and a slogging fight, and neither should or would surprise any of us, right? I kind of get that from here too, even though Daniel Santos has been super aggressive. And granted, in his last fight, Johnny Munoz Jr. was pulling guard a lot. But we saw that, Santos will, accept positions, positive or negative. And Jong Young Lee's a really well-rounded Korean fighter. Classic guy where, I watched the tape and I really like to bet him. And not to broad brush stereotype. I love my Korean brothers and sisters there, but boy, do I not like betting them as I've been burned betting them as favorites, because even the really technical ones and well-trained ones, sometimes they just show up and it's time to brawl. And you're like, it's time to what? And next thing you know, Hyder Emil's knocking them out. Not that I picked or played Jong Young Lee, but just kind of to put a case in point there. That being said, I don't expect that to be the case every time. I do like Jong Young Lee here. I do feel like he's the more well-rounded fighter. I don't know if we could really call either of these guys consistent, but I am going to pick Jong Young Lee probably by a decision. I'll be curious of what those numbers look like. Maybe there you get a nice plus number there with if this is what the totals are stacked at, but very curious to hear your guys' thoughts, if any strong ones at all on this fight. Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, well, let's hope this fight actually happens. I mean, this guy, Daniel Santos, is pulled out from 5 or 6 fights, some by injury, some by, weight misses and stuff like that. So let's just actually hope it happens. Coming from Shoot Box, you're going to get an exciting fighter whenever they come from that camp. Noting the Castaneda fight. I mean, this is a fight where he was rocked. Literally, one time almost put on Queer Street by a nasty head kick and then got rocked again. And he ends up coming back to win. So we know that he knows how to dig deep. We know that when things get violent and shit goes into the center of the cage, he's going to jump and he's going to play in it. As far as Lee, when I saw that fight against Hyder Emil, it was very out of his character. Like the film that I've seen of him, I was like, what is he doing? Why is he sitting in the pocket just exchanging like this, like with Hyder Emil? And could have been the bright lights, could have been he felt like that's what he needed to do. Maybe he was caught, he got caught a little bit too much into a firefight, but that's not how he usually fights. If you go back to the Blake Builder fight, he is kind of calculated. He does find it kind of fight long. Sometimes he will engage in a pocket a little bit too much and his chin is on the shelf. He does lean forward a little bit. Too much for my liking, but he is more calculated than when he showed with the Hyder Emil fight. And I think people might be looking at that fight and saying, you know what, if you're giving me Daniel Santos here in a fight where this guy loves to brawl and he's going to do what he did against Hyder Emil, then there you go. We got a scrap on our hands. But I don't think we're going to see that. I think that Lee is going to be a little bit more technical. He's going to be a little bit more labored in his approach. Santos is probably going to be one doing a little bit more of the hunting. I could see one of these guys getting rocked in this fight. But I got to go with the more technical guy. Like I said, technicalities over chaos. I think that, this is Lee's fight to win or lose. It's really, how he approaches it.
Yeah, I bet Lee at minus 103. We can put like 1.5 units on it. A lot of it comes down to the fact that it's I have no idea what the hell's going on with Willie Cat. I backed Willie Cat in a bunch of spots. I planned on fading him against Davey Grant because, they're both kind of my guys, but Grant even more so. So I was already kind of fading him. I really didn't expect him to kind of show up here. A month later, all of a sudden fighting up a weight class, taking on a big opponent who was already getting ready for this card. Everything just kind of stinks about this situation for him. And I'm not big, but I think Hyder Emil's pretty damn good, and he kind of, just makes it an absolute dogfight. And some people get overwhelmed. I don't really fault Young Lee too much for that. Go back to what happened in the Blake Builder fight. Mind your P's and Q's. Stay at range. Use that freakishly long reach of yours, and you should be able to, at the very least, edge it out against a bantamweight moving up, giving up a whole bunch in the length department. So Lee for me. You're muted, Cody.
Sorry, I keep doing that apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I ended up taking Daniel Santos. I don't think there's any great edge or any great reason for taking him. And I really do want to see the weigh-ins to see if he makes weight and how he looks. But yeah, when I watch Lee, it's he doesn't seem overly comfortable moving backwards. If he's coming forward, getting some offense off, then maybe he finds that rhythm, he finds that range. But if you can bully him around a little bit, he seems to be uncomfortable. But he also just seems to be really low volume. So again, you watch his UFC debut against Yitsa, and he gets taken down 5 times, but all the same, 15-minute fight, he lands 24 significant strikes. His next fight with Builder, he more or less has his way with Builder. He beats him up in all 3 rounds. Blake Builder's not someone I rate, but it's a very clean victory. But again, he lands less than 50 significant strikes, despite it being one-way traffic for the vast majority of it. And then his last fight against Hayter, what can you really say? Hayter backs him up, but Hayter throws 50 significant strikes and 85% of them land. So defensively, I don't think he's that clean. Moving backwards is what Hayter was able to do to him, is where you really see his vulnerabilities. Him up against the cage, there's a problem there, and I think he can mix takedowns on him. Wiley Cat's fought on some decent guys. Outside of a debut loss to Julio Arce, where his own volume wasn't so great, he's kind of up that department. I really go back to that fight with John Castaneda where they exchanged knockdowns, but all the same, it's like Willie Cat lands 69 significant strikes through like a round and a half. It's like less than 2 full rounds, and he's already landing nearly 70 significant strikes. He's mixing in takedowns. I feel like he is bigger. He is stronger, bigger in his own way. Maybe not lengthwise, size-wise, but a lower center of gravity. He's able to get into the hips. He's able to fight within the pocket. He's got 2 wins on the regional scene by spinning back kicks. So he's athletic. He can throw these high performance type of techniques. And also he's fought a bunch of Russians in Russia. So to me, it's like he's the complete package. He's not a world beater. He's not a top 15 guy, but I mean, he's got very serviceable striking. His wrestling is something he can mix in. He's got a little more volume than Lee. I just feel like he's a little bit better all the way around. Now he is coming in on ultra short notice, and he has pulled out of, more fights than anybody in recent memory. He's had like 6 cancellations over the last 2 years. So is his body holding up? I'm really not sure. I gotta wait to see what he looks like on the scales. But talent-wise, skill-wise, I feel like he's a little bit better than Lee. And so I didn't end up taking Daniel Santos on a very slight play.
Interesting there. I was going to say, it's plus 333, by the way, for those curious about the Lee decision line, which isn't bad. But when you factor in the health points as far as Daniel Santos, like you guys are doing, that makes me a lot less confident, because maybe Daniel Santos is the John Castaneda, right? As far as how their fight went, where Castaneda almost finished him and fell apart. I'm a big Castaneda, truther, but recently it's come to kind of like, as we heard with Castaneda's corner, he doesn't really have that killer instinct. You hear his corner almost pleading with him. Whereas, I do think Lee's not some prime Vanderlei Silva, but I do believe he's got more of a killer instinct if he's able to get him hurt. I do believe that, he, does have more of a staying power, at least than Daniel Santos, who, like you said, if he's not healthy, maybe he just crumbles, and then there goes your decision ticket. I think Paul got a good line. It's crazy to see that he actually opened as a plus 116 dog. So some of you must have got a really good line, but we'll see. It's only, CLV is only CLV. We got to see how the fights actually go, right? That being said, I still don't blame anybody for anything maybe under minus 120 if you're looking for some kind of short favorite on this card. But yeah, this gambling for a reason, folks. You're gonna get dirty on this one. Unless there's anything to add, let's go to the last fight of the night, which is really interesting for me. Okay, so I really interested in this fight. We've got Bekzat Almakhan, of course, a Kazakh fighter, minus 161 against Canada's own, maybe Ireland's own as well. I know he kind of cross trains over there at SPG Ireland. We got Brad Katona. Yeah, the accent that makes me want to, just makes me want to go nuts and like nails to a chalkboard to me. But he seems like the nicest guy in the world. He comes back at a plus 141 dog. We got totals at 2.5 rounds, over minus 325. The under minus 250. Wow, am I reading that right? Okay, they are predicting violence here. This is one of those cases where I feel like the totals don't match.
No, plus 250.
Oh, is it plus 250? Okay, all right. Oh, it's plus 250. I got you. Okay, yeah. Under plus 250. That makes more sense. Apologies, folks. Yeah, we got Bekzat here opened as the favorite. So this is dangerous, man. This is like, I feel like I'm walking right into a trap, guys, because this is the top piece at minus 161, especially. And I want to we could fall too much in love with the number and start making logic with confirmation bias, right? And I've done this before where you overrate a fighter off of a loss. Like I am like that guy. We all make all mistakes if we're being honest with ourselves, right? But as far as mistakes that I make a lot, that's one. And perhaps I'm making it here, guys, because not only am I picking, spoiler alert, Almakhan here, I'm even considering him for parlay consideration, which means I'm obviously a little more confident in him than other picks, safe to say. And Brad Katona is a guy who is really good. I bet on Brad Katona. He's really underrated. He's just hard to get a beat on because even if you put all the, personality quirks aside, you really look at this guy's skill. He's really technical. He's not at a loss for ideas anywhere. Could fold elbows over frames, strike, and do some really good things in the small spaces. But I think the big criticism of Katona, aside from his accent, of course, is that he fights to his competition, right? He'll fight close with the lower level guys, whether you think he won or lost those fights or not. The fact is he's fighting close with those guys, but then he's also, he's staying fairly competitive with some good guys too. Here and there. However, when you look at those good guys or the guys that just beat him in general, usually you've got athleticism, some strong wrestling base. And back when I talked about initiative earlier, whether it's striking initiative, grappling initiative, or just being aggressive, having that be first initiative, Bekzat definitely has that. Now he ran into a train that was, who is really going to, debut against an Umar Nurmagomedov. That alone was kind of insane. I believe that was a short notice. I was actually off that card. I was over in Thailand, so I came back to that fight late. And I'm like, who's this Bekzat guy? And he actually impressed me in the loss. Was able to, he almost knocked out Umar there. And we've seen Brad Katona, even though he's never been stopped. He's not beyond being hurt. We saw John Matsumoto, be able to tag him on similar counters with similar overhands. But Katona came back to make that fight close too. So I'm probably going to be sweating as anybody who decides to take the Almakhan side of this. You're probably smarter going dog, but I don't know, guys. Talk me out of it. I like the favorite here. Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, so when I look at Almakhan, it reminds me of like a perfect situation where like you see exactly what you said. Who the hell's debuting against, Omar? But I think people are taking a little too much of that, and they're taking more of a moment that he a little flash knockdown. And if you look at the overall body of the rest of that fight, like that was kind of it. It was the oh my god factor. Did this kid just put down Umar? But then as the fight continued to unfold, you just started seeing obviously what this kid's demise was going to be, and it's great. Don't get me wrong. He came in on debut, big time, a prospect that he was fighting. All the chips were against him, but at the end of the day, it was like a moment, that he had a spot, almost like back in the day. I don't know if you guys remember Tim Elliott versus DJ. Like he had a moment in that fight. You know what I mean? And that's really what I think it was. But when you look at the fight in a whole, and you look at Brad Katona, and you look at this is a kid who won the Ultimate Fighter not once but twice. Like you got to be pretty damn good to do that. You know what I mean? So he won that once but twice. I do agree that he does fight up and down to the level of his competition, and that's a problem with me. But at the end of the day, if he's fighting up and down to the level of competition, he's fighting up to the level of Almakhan. This is a fight that kind of, to me, if Almakhan's speed doesn't take over, because I do think he is the faster, snappier fighter, I think you could be looking at a split decision right out of the gate. You know what I mean? And if you're going to look at a split decision right out of the gate for something like a fight like this, a solid fighter like Katona, pretty durable, tends to go to the decision a lot, whether he wins or loses. The judges have done very maniacal things. And we know that. We could score the fight 30-27 for Almakhan, and all of a sudden you get the kid from Canada getting a 29-28 lean. So, if I were to put anything on this fight, I would probably lead on Katona.
I bet Katona plus 158. I just think wrestling could be in his bet. Like wrestling could work for him here. Yeah, I think a lot of I went back and watched a couple of Almakhan's fights before he got into the Umar fight. It's like he gets dropped in out of those last three fights, two of those fights, he gets dropped in round one. Like, I don't know if his chin's all that great. No doubt, there was like a, oh my God moment against cousin Umar, but the rest of that fight, he got taken down, controlled, as most people would, like a elite prospect. But like Katona took on Merab, he was able to at least put up a little bit more of a fight. I know they're different type of stylistic matchups and everything like that, but I don't know. We have a guy who's got a wealth of experience, hasn't been knocked out, going in there as an underdog in front of his home, his home country. Everything kind of just points towards Katona for me. He's in close fights with a lot of people, like John Matsumoto up until that Rob Font fight, undefeated Brazilian prospect. I mean, everything just kind of points towards like you're going to give me plus money on, a proven veteran as opposed to a guy who, wins these fights on the regional scene, but has shown some signs of getting rocked, wobbled, and then had one moment against an elite fighter as opposed to, going to decision, losing 32 significant strikes for Katona against Merab. Everything just points towards like it's a dog shot to open the night for me.
Yeah,
Cody.
I'm in the same boat. I mean, with Almacan, you do see it often enough. You know, Basil Hafez is a great example. Debuts in the UFC, no expectations. What a great performance. The next time out, this guy's a world beater. Chris Moutinho debuts against Sean O'Malley. Damn, he got his ass kicked. But what a hell of a chin this guy's got. Next fight out, huge favorite. And they lose.
Guido.
You overrate them. Yeah, great. Guido Canetti knocked him out. Point being is that we're all guilty of it. You see somebody lose. It's it's courageous, it's admirable. This person stepped up short notice. He gave him his best go. He unfortunately loses, but there's something you like about it. They announce their next fight, and you're on this guy. Everybody's on this guy because he showed you something in that last fight. Doesn't necessarily mean they're the most well-rounded guys out there. With Beksat, no doubt that there's something there, but I think everyone's touched on the same point. He lands 3 significant strikes. One of them happens to drop Umar, and that's the whole story of the fight. Outside of that, it's him getting grappled badly. You know, his get-up game is seemingly mediocre. Brad Katona is someone that comes from an amateur boxing background, has spent a lot of time working on his offensive wrestling, has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, has moved around to various camps and gotten some different looks. Him at his best, he's a problem. Last time he fought in Canada, I believe, was his fight with Garrett Armfield. He waited way too long those first 2 rounds. He allowed Garrett Armfield to get off with the jab, outpoint him, and then the 3rd round, finally, he goes to his takedowns, goes for like 3 for 3, holds him down for 3 minutes of the round, and definitely wins that 3rd, but it's too little too late. That's what a veteran goes through. Veteran loses, goes back to the drawing board and says, what did I do wrong, and makes the improvements. As you guys talked about, he's won the Ultimate Fighter twice. He's gone the distance with Merab Dvalishvili. He's fought a much higher level of opponent. He's seen different looks. I do have more faith that he'll be able to put the winning game plan together. I think it's going to be take him down. Don't play with this kid too long. He seems very fast. He's got a legitimate amount of power. So use your striking, sporadically, but ultimately mix in some takedowns, ground this guy, rack up some top control time, threaten some submission attempts if you can. If not, hold him down, mix in a little bit of ground and pound, and take these rounds. He's from Winnipeg. It's in Canada. There's really no tie to Quebec in any sense. He's also living in Ireland for the most part and has an Irish accent for some weird reason now. Very Mackenzie Dern-esque, just randomly later on in life developing an accent. But all the same, he is actually a pretty smart guy, and I feel like if he puts the right game plan together, he could eke out a close win. I don't know who mentioned the split decision, but this is another one. Too. Yeah, I marked that one down as another possible split because of the contrasting styles, the close and competitive nature of this type of fight, and it's going to be subjective in terms of what style the judges are going to agree on. So I think it's probably close, but I'm hoping for a dog win right out the gate.
Dude, I like that split decision a lot, and I like that you guys talking some sense into me, talking me off the cliff. I will say, what is from Winnipeg is one of my favorite punk hardcore bands, Comeback Kid, and Brad Katona is an underdog due for a comeback, so maybe that is an omen there. The punk hardcore perhaps could be in the air. I will say though one thing, kind of just to bounce, because we saw it with Jasmine Jasudavicius when she fought Natalia Silva, where we didn't see Natalia Silva. Granted, it was like a little under 3 years, whereas this is a little over a year. We haven't seen Beksat, but these younger fighters, you don't see them for a while. They tend to improve. Beksat was a guy who, was kind of just training out in Kazakhstan, and he has their version of master of sports and MMA. I think he even has like a black belt in karate, so you see him do that in and out stuff as well. But his wrestling looked actually good in transition wise. He reminded me of like a Wildman Merab when I watched his earlier fights. Just super raw, of course, still in the raw section. Likes to strike a little more than Merab. But obviously we saw some exposure with the get-up game I did not like. But I just wanted to mention that he did spend this last year training at Tiger Muay Thai, and American Top Team is one of Pantoja's training partners. So I will say, maybe leave some room to be surprised for the Beksat side. But yeah, I think you're smarter off if you're doing something pre-flop here. You're smart enough putting your money on the dog. That plus 158 was a really good number, by the way, you got there, Paul. I don't blame anybody if you see any numbers around that plus 150 range. But yeah, I'm still going to pick the favorite here, but maybe I'll look for that split decision prop instead and maybe get creative if I don't want to commit to a side. I like your guys' analysis.
These markets move so crazy on fight day and stuff. No. Like I don't get over, like, it's nice that I have a plus 158, but it's like, if this turns out to be plus 170 on fight day, like, I'm not going to be surprised to be on the other side of it. Like, sure. On Saturday, it tends, like, the markets go absolutely mental sometimes. So, like, when I like underdogs, a lot of times I wait till Saturday these days. It's been a big difference in the last, like, 3 or 4 years, in my opinion.
Yes, 100%. I'm a late better too, and I felt a lot better and less FOMO about it lately. Maybe it's that less social media strategy we've been doing, Paul. But no. As far as the results go, I agree. I think the market's actually spoken to that.
Yep, 100%.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps the card, and we are a couple minutes short of our hard out here. So, anything we want to say to the audiences, to each other, as far as this was really fun. I almost wish we could do this weekly, but of course you guys are going to be doing your own thing that is already in full swing. I don't want to step on those plugs, but if you guys want to remind the audience of the programming changes, as far as you guys want to take the stage for that.
Cody, you gonna hit him with one more PRP for the road?
Yeah. So Paul and I are breaking down PFL, 2 PFL cards this weekend. There's an LFA card this weekend. There's an ACA card this weekend. There's a Samurai also in Quebec on the Friday on UFC Fight Pass. So we're covering a bunch of stuff. And if you do want any of that, or you're interested in any of that, you can hop over on Bookie Beatdown over on Patreon and then join up for the Discord. But yeah, we got one more PRP for old time's sake with the guys. What I will say is, we're all on the same page here, right? So we all got Belal, we all got Shevchenko, we all got José, we all took Natalia Silva, we all took Benoît Saint Denis, no surprise there. Who took Radtke? Someone's got Radtke? No one's got Radtke. Okay, so we all got Mike Malott. Yep. We all took Jasmine Jasudavicius. I took Eon. Honestly, who the hell knows in this fight? I took Eon. Paul's got Eon. I think Madlab's got Modestas. I don't fault him there at all. So a little bit of dissension there. We all got Sterling. I think we all got Barry, although we can admit that that's kind of a up in the air type fight. He could get slapped in the first round. He could out hustle him. Who the hell knows? A little bit of dissension on Santos Lee. Little bit of ascension in Alkmaar Katona. So in terms of the PRP, I can't speak for all the guys and just say, this is what it is. But what I can say is we're on the same page for 75, 80% of the fights on that. And I would certainly use those as the building blocks of your stuff this week. So I guess unofficially, Belal Muhammad, Valentina Shevchenko, José Aldo, Natalia Silva, Benoît Saint Denis, Mike Malott, Jasmine Jasudavicius. I think it was a 3-1 Cutelaba, so he'd get the nod. Sterling, slight nod Barrio, slight nod Lee. I think I got outvoted on that one, and a slight nod for Brad Katona. But again, those ones are some closer fights. So tons of MMA action going down this weekend. Appreciate the time from Dan. Appreciate the time from Mike from Mad Labs. Appreciate Pat Mayo for everything he's done for me on a personal level over the number of years. A guy that I do consider a great friend, but also a mentor of mine. And it's upwards and onwards. This is not the end of nothing. It's just the creation of something brand new. So I'm sure if we had more time, we could do this all the time. Likely not going to happen, but I can't see no reason why we can't do this once in a while. Some of those bigger shows, have a little bit of fun with it, do a little cross-promotional stuff. So, best of luck to everyone betting this weekend. Let's kick some ass.
And Mike, anything you want to say real quick before I say something really quick and throw it to Paul to give us one last sign up for the house that Cody and Paul built here. Mike, anything to say before we go?
I just appreciate, like I said, it's a long time coming to actually do a show with all three of you guys. I appreciate that very much. I also appreciate giving me the opportunity to come on here. I will be tuning in to Paul and Cody's show. Respect them a lot. They are, in my eyes, for as long as I've been in this game, they've been in this game as some of the OGs. So, I mean, it's I hope we can cross promote sometimes. Like I said, Cody, I'd love to do some boxing with you, eventually down the road. If you want to, that'd be great. But I want to give the floor to them. This ain't about me right now. This is about these guys. So whatever these guys want to end it with.
Yeah, 100%. Me and Mike will be here week to week. We're going to grow. We're going to have our own fun tie-ins, sign-offs, and all that. But this is about the house that Cody and Paul built. It means a lot to us. I'm also going to be supporting them and listening to them because I'm like you guys. I'm a fan of these guys as well and their work. So you guys are just getting more here. But let's get out of here one more time in classic fashion. Paul, hit us with it. My ears need it, baby.
Hit us with what?
That's all.
Sign off, buddy.
Yeah,
good night.
What a brutal ending.
Come on. Let's try to pitch
that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For Mike and Dan and Cody and Jared, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.